100 days ago, this was just a normal Minecraft world. This is the Sculk Horde, a mod that takes the Sculk, has it infect every mob in the game, and slowly consumes the world, turning it into goop. Some people died. But it's a sacrifice that I was willing to make. And it has evolved. Oh, I don't like that. That looks like some kind of alt. I've added a bunch of other stuff that makes it so you can't even stand on Sculk without it slowly eating away at your health. But you know what won't consume you is the Department of Biosecurity merch line, as well as the new Be Good and Be Proud designs available on the store right now. Check it out. We have a bunch of other stuff coming throughout the rest of the summer. It's going to be a solid year, and thank you so much for 600,000 subscribers. We are cooking. So let's see if I can take on the apocalypse or become a part of the flood. Day 1. And now it begins. This is gonna be fun. There's the phantoms, and away they go. I just want to wait to see and have it pop up here on the surface, just so you all can see what I'm gonna have to deal with. Give it just a few seconds. Oh, there they go. They're landing. The conversion has begun. With the phantoms down and already starting to convert a lot of the blocks into Sculk-infested variants, seeing the horde already starting to crawl down in the world south towards a village in that direction, I started heading that way, seeing that the horde had some new tricks up its sleeve. An infected fish. I started by killing anything that was walking around to avoid it adding mass to the horde, looking around in the different buildings to see what I could grab. Hay bales and wheat were the first things, just so I'd have a little bit of a stable food supply at the beginning, looting the armory, getting a few pieces of iron and my initial set of armor. Sorry, I'm touching. I made myself an iron pick, upgraded to a full iron chest plate instead of chainmail, hitting up a few more rooms and just kind of screaming at the village to leave. It's the end of the world. Run. Run, everybody. Seriously. You're gonna want to get out of here quick. Being thoroughly ignored by all of the villagers and animals, I killed a few to get food, grabbed a little bit more out of the chests, picked up a few emeralds and other resources before heading up the central building and getting a big come up. Diamonds, that's useful. Ooh, what are you? Flame. Oh, that's huge. Oh, there's just, nope. Golem, you gotta go do your job. But the golem was not having it as I continued to rob the village because they're not gonna need it all pretty soon, making myself a sleeping bag, some other iron tools, some bread from the chests, before grabbing a bed, looking at the map, and calling it a night there. The next morning, I was desperately trying to figure out how to make string so I could craft myself up a bow and some other weapons. Trying to get some flax to do that, it just broke down into seeds, so I made some shears, but there were no more flax plants around. Only this weird totem thing and a couple copper golems, so I was able to deoxidize to allow them to walk around and chill, even though the horde will likely consume them momentarily. I broke into a bakery or McDonald's, one of the two, grabbing a bunch of different foods from around and seeing a really cool 3-layer cake, which I figured out was a bit of a lie. Yeah, I had to make that joke. Dealing with some crocodiles outside and some bookcases that I broke down to be able to collect some knowledge. There's a little bit of slime, and let me tell you, that slime is actually going to be very important some 80 days from now, don't worry. Running over towards all of the farms in the area to kill all of the animals so that I would have usable food and the horde would not. I broke down all of the melons that I found around the neighborhood, finding a few spider webs, which I was able to make a sword and craft down into a few string. I'm still one short for a backpack, and I could make a bow, but that's not really the best use right now. Finding a random bucket and some other utility blocks in the forge near the very top of the building, and getting myself up to a full iron set just as the Sculk was starting to creep into the city limits. So I headed up towards the top of the hill as it was a little bit more docile to let you know what the whole evolved thing is about. You so much as stand on Sculk, it starts to kill you. This is going to be very problematic very fast. Really need to figure out one more string so I can load up my backpack and leave. So I broke my way back down into the forge, grabbing a bucket of lava, which, until I can make purifiers, is probably the best weapon I have. Picking up all of the food that I had set cooking, taking a quick nap, and in the morning, finding a rascal running around in the woods. I chased them around a little bit more, but they didn't really drop anything, heading into one of the final buildings of town, finding a few more spider webs, which would allow me to craft up everything I needed. I grabbed all of the bookcases from here, including a few random enchanted books sitting on a few of the shelves, which is going to be useful. I had left all of my food cooking, crafting all of the nuggets down into ingot form, and then crafting myself up a backpack. I immediately upgraded it to iron tier, being a little bit short on gold, and started organizing all of my valuables inside. I'm gonna have to be able to be on the move for a good portion of this 100 days because the horde is always hunting. You're all gonna die here. You really should leave. Like, you really should leave. I mean it. You really should. I don't think they're gonna listen. For them, I'm the man who cried wolf. Well, we're gonna do our best. I don't think I'm supposed to see that. See, I told you the cake was a lie, but breaking down that falsehood, I went down and broke down a few trees, killed a few chickens, primarily for feathers, made myself a shield with the wood that I had gathered, and one of my few valuable pieces of iron, because that's going to be useful, looking at the map, seeing that the horde has already grown pretty extensively already. It's already really causing problems. But I'm still on the lookout for basic supplies right now. I need to worry about surviving in this world before I have any chance of pushing back, and it's going to take a lot of investment and research to try to develop a cure. And that, ironically, starts with killing spiders in a hole in the ground. Day 4, I dove down into the exposed spider dungeon that I had found, using it to get a whole bunch of string from all of the different cobwebs that I was able to break down, grabbing some wool blocks as well, and breaking down the spawners with pickaxes for a quick XP boost and to stop all the mobs from breaking in. And once you kind of push down the tunnels, you're getting more than just the string from the blocks that you're breaking. Oh, this is huge. Golden apple, weakness, instant damage, slowness. Sick. Absolutely wonderful. The only problem I have to worry about right now is that potions don't stack, and poison spider bites right now, very early game, are still actually potentially lethal if I get myself caught in a dangerous situation. I picked up some more projectile protection books from one of the chests down there, having more potions than my inventory can really manage, working my way back towards the main room and filling my backpack and my pockets with everything that I had, unstackable as it may be. But I continue trying to work through a couple of the different tunnels, getting to the second tier spawner, picking up a few golden apples, which are a huge ability to recover early game. I didn't know what that enchant was actually even for, and I'm not sure I ever actually applied it, but I made myself a bow and a chest going on top of the tree here and dumping off all of the unstackable potions to free up a little bit of inventory space. I marked the location on the map, and the following morning headed out to try to see what else I could see. Knowing that I'm not going to be able to take the horde out head on, and I'm going to need some ranged options, I mined up a little bit of gravel, spending some time breaking that down before getting the flint hidden inside, running around killing chickens for feathers and whatever this green floaty thing is for absolutely nothing but some peace of mind. It started to storm immediately after, so I'm thinking maybe that was a bad omen and I shouldn't have killed the wood nymph in the middle of the apocalypse, but you know what? I'm better safe than sorry right here. Grabbing a few shiny blue blocks out of the ground that, I'll admit, I don't think I ever actually used. But I saw a portal on my map heading off in that direction and hitting up the chest first, finding some really useful things. Oh, what is that? Use while sneaking to set a location. Interesting. But I crafted up as many arrows as I possibly could, getting just about half a stack, which would get me a little bit of ranged combat, but without any sort of enchantments isn't really effective in taking out the horde en masse. I continued running through the savannah, swimming down one of the nearby rivers, just trying to get a little bit of distance between me and the front line of where the infection is consuming the world. The following morning, I was fighting with some very unique looking creepers that are definitely a little bit more acclimated to the acacia biome compared to normal Minecraft, bouncing around a little bit and completing the loop from the portal to double back towards the horde a little bit, making my way back to the spider dungeon now that I have some arrows in my pocket to take that on that I can do a little bit of combat at range. I did get poisoned, like immediately, waiting for that to pass before making myself a new iron sword, as my previous one had broken, using a bucket of water to also break a lot of the cobwebs a little bit faster and more efficiently without having to worry about durability. I'm down into the kind of tier 2 layer of the dungeon, getting a whole bunch of different valuables, including a lot of wool from here, which could be useful. Trying to check the little web balls at the end of each of these tunnels, hoping for more chests, but just striking out with 3 for 3 on spawners. I did hear some other random sounds and did some digging towards them, ending up in a cave that was surrounding the actual tunnels of the spider dungeon, finding a few one-off spiders and sniping them down before being accosted by a goblin who was willing to sell me their wares. Hi, you. What do you got for me? Nice. Gunpowder might be useful. Raw iron. Actually, some iron would be smart. There's some right over there. Okay. I spent a quick little bit of time mining up some raw iron, which I was able to convert at a really favorable trade rate. I love these little goblin traders. Before hitting a random key and triggering some random kind of spawn zoom shenanigans. Oh my goodness, what have I done? Zoom in, zoom out, reset zoom. Oh God, that was so disorienting. Spent a little bit more time in the cave looting up a bunch of the different raw resources, primarily gold and lapis, as that was what was here. Heading back into the spider dungeon to spend a little bit more time breaking down the remainder of the cobwebs and heading down the final tunnel to break just one more spawner. And in the morning when I woke, my foe had evolved. What's that? To the image. No. Okay. Let's get up and out of here. Oh my God, it's already taken up so much space. It's already taken up a lot. Ooh, that looks fun. We'll go to that later. Now this was way faster than last time. The horde was a little bit smarter. It had much more specialized units and much more different ways where it could spread spores across the entire world. I dropped off and stashed a lot of the string in the chest here just for inventory space, heading around needing to find one more diamond so I could get the crying obsidian so I could start on the multi-step journey towards being able to actually craft a cure. Along the way, I found a patch of Sculk and a lot of spore spewers that were desperately trying to expand it further. Oh, that made it so much worse. You see, the thing we need to worry about with the horde is that it will always spawn the mobs that are most advantageous for it. So every time I'm setting off a summoner right now, it's summoning a few mites to attempt to infect me and other nearby mobs, and a whole bunch of spore spewers, which will just make the growth happen even faster, consuming mass from all around the world around it. Task failed successfully. Slow it down. Oh, no, I can't stand on it. Oh, that's not good at all. That's what I need to kill. Let's see if we can kill it again. Let's like get around here. I killed these spore spreading mobs that would slow down the growth just a little bit, buying me a bit more time to be able to find a diamond and other resources, heading to a nearby forest, a different direction from where I had started, and seeing an army of mites crawling my way. Seriously? Oh, it's already almost at this village. We gotta move fast. There's a Ravager! No! Oh, it's progressing so quick. Okay, we have to go. We have to loot this place and go quickly. Ding dong, run. Ding dong, you wanna run. Where are we? 134. So it's like off in this direction somewhere. Where is it? 66, -25. Okay, so it's like right here-ish. There's a Sculk Enderman. Oh god, it's already up at that point. I didn't think it would be this far this fast. That is a Sculk Enderman, one of the pinnacle units of the Horde, and the primary way that it's gonna try to kill me. It can use a sonic blast, it has an awesome cleaver arm, and it can summon a whole bunch of mobs to a localized area if it happens to find priority targets, that being things with beds or doors or mobs that the Horde can eat. Last time around, it took 40 days for one of those to spawn. This time it did it in 7, but I continued looting around the village, getting a few enchants and a few other random goodies, grabbing any bread that I could find, skipping over the hay bales because they would take too long to break, grabbing the potatoes and carrots so I would have renewable crops wherever I decided to set up. And the chests were a little bit underwhelming, only the random emerald here or there. And while the Sculk is the danger, there were other horrors waiting for me inside. The unholy abomination of... Oh, what was that? Oh my god, just like... Look out. This world is being consumed as we speak. With the very edge of the city already starting to be consumed by the Sculk, I filled my backpack with whatever I could, finding a villager hat that would make trades far more cheap. It's like a 50% discount. This is the best membership card ever. But I looted through the remainder of the buildings, getting no diamonds, but seeing the desert turn from yellow sand to black sludge as it continued to inch closer. Inside one of the houses, though, I actually found a staircase, partially buried, potentially hidden, and a secret lab downstairs. Oh my god. Here I thought it was gonna be some super secret. It's just every terracotta ever. I mean, that is kind of cool. Hi. But finding the secret terracotta lab, which is slightly less dangerous than I was expecting in the apocalypse, I'm not gonna lie. I hit up the library at the northernmost edge of town, seeing some villagers that were braving it extensively by wandering into the Horde. What are you doing? That's not where you want to be. Oh, there's hives. Oh, but I can't even get close because of the... Oh no. Oh no. Oh, it's spreading. It's coming for this village. Now's a good time to run. Oh, it's already in the village. It's too late. Ow. They have aquatic units now. That didn't used to be a thing. Heading north, I'm in my way to another nether portal with more crying obsidian that I can't mine because I don't have a pickaxe. I am able to grab the gold from the top of the structure though, having a quick nap right there by the netherrack before continuing to head north. Oh, I hate how that sounds. Why would you make it sound that squishy? I don't like that. I do not approve. Ugh. With the Great Mind now fully formed, the Horde now has intelligence. It will seek me out. It has objectives and goals, and I really need to try not to be one of them. I found a little bit of a ruined house nearby, realizing that it was a bit of an archaeology site after smashing half of the grave. Oh, I need a brush. That's not gonna be bad karma or anything. Heading north, seeing a jungle temple that felt like a good rest stop. That looks like it might make for a nice place to hold up. I've seen apocalypse movies. Go move into a big giant temple. What could go wrong? I headed up to the very top of the temple, as that was the only entrance that I could initially find. Villager, they don't seem to have evolved a lot. Oh, that's just mean. Uncalled for. And shade from tooltips aside, I headed down and started checking out the space, having the water that I used to get in disarm some of the very first traps that I encountered. There's a few spawners here that I had to worry about, but I had a couple torches, so I was able to break those and disable them for right now. Finding my friend's body down here inside the dungeon with their head up on top, and I think that there's a little bit of environmental storytelling there. There's a few different traps around the jungle temple that I had to disarm, mainly worrying about potions and not getting myself infected or splashed with something corrosive. Finding some gold and some bombs in the chests, as you do. But the loot here was valuable. There was a saddle, which is definitely going to be useful. Some extra mobility is good in the end of the world. But I headed back up, combining the skull and body in my crafting grid to make myself a friend. Oh, I can just give him a bomb. Oh, buddy. With my friend armed, I started making some better staircases down into the space, plopping some chests down on the very top of the building, really barrels that I had looted from in here, filling it with all of the random knickknacks from my inventory, and sleeping on the roof before heading back in the following day to clear more of the space. I mined my way through a lot of the floors, having the water just kind of inadvertently disarm a few of the traps that I would have had to deal with, making my way to a central room with a central vault with a whole bunch of gold and emeralds inside, the treasure being worth the time. But even though I had found the central room, I still had some dangers to worry about, specifically the skeleton spawner that was around here, with skeletons that had arrows that would freeze me to death somehow, and I don't know how that works. What even is that? I was eventually able to block up the spawners so that it was contained and lit up, thinking maybe I should leave that one. It is a skeleton spawner, so I'd be able to farm for arrows if I was able to have the time to set up here properly. So I surrounded it with torches on all sides, grabbing a little bit of armor from the armor stands here, some of it being lightly enchanted, which would be useful for me. Grabbing a few of the redstone components just so I could use that to potentially build some machines or set up some defenses. Getting myself a diamond sword from one of the interior chests. Yo! Oh my. I'm so nervous. Oh my god, there's the diamond I needed. Diamond, we get a wild armor trim, diamond armor, nuggets of both, gunpowder, and a breach book. This is so good. This, however, feels like a trap, so I'm gonna wait. But I was still a little bit nervous. There was some other traps, redstone that would make zombie sounds, a few doors that I was nervous on opening. I was even kind of scared to break the blocks themselves, mining them from the absolute maximum mining distance, thinking maybe there's TNT or some explosion under the ground. But no, it was just genuinely the treasure that I had gotten from clearing this dungeon. You have no idea how much that item break scared me. I guess it's legit. That's a ton of supplies. That is a massive come up. All right, we should live here, shouldn't we? We absolutely should. I can set this up with some defenses. We have spawners for XP farming right in the base. We should probably live here. So this is where we're gonna hold up. A jungle temple in the end of the world. I think I've seen this movie before. The next morning, though, if I'm gonna live here, I should do a little bit of spring cleaning. It was breaking down a lot of the cobwebs, moving a little bit of the lighting around to make sure everything in the base would actually be spawn-proof, setting up a few of the different rooms as different storage areas for specific types of materials, turning the foundry area into a bit of a kitchen, disarming all of the traps and breaking the spawners in the upstairs area to kind of understand what's there, finding a small little library off in the corner. I spent some time to mark the location on my map so I would know how to get back here for when I inevitably ventured out, looking over the hill to see if I could see the horde progressing my direction. After that, it was just kind of opening some iron doors that were around, breaking down some of the random blocks that were blocking the floor, you know, like when you take over a base in Rust. taking it from somebody else's and making it my own. I put down all of the chests inside of the vault room, starting to categorize a lot of the items into the different chests that I had here, taking a quick nap in the barracks area before getting back at it the following morning. The rotted blocks actually break down to sticks instead of their plank forms, which is good. It gave me ladders that I could use to head up to the roof, upgrading my backpack to gold with all of the gold I had collected from this structure, and then reorganizing my backpack a bit, converting some of that gold into golden apples, which are essential for my overall progression and survival. I then kept at it, getting a lot more of the loot organized down inside, making a few things with seeds so that I'd be able to do a little bit of farming for sustainable food down the road, and moving my friend Charlie down here into the base proper. I'm gonna give you that to hold. I know y'all are here for the apocalypse, and inventory management is not exactly fun, so let's do a little bit of barbecuing, cooking all of the raw food that I had been collecting from all of the different animals that I saved from being assimilated into usable food that would keep me alive as I fought the Horde. The following morning, I needed a little bit of wood, and you can tell this scenario has me on edge. That scared me. So is there an easy way into here? Turns out there wasn't, so I just kind of dug a hole in the side of the building and put a few doors down, making this room the entry foyer for the base. Since I had a few spare doors, I added some extra ones to the loot storage room and made it a proper airlock on the front door, just so nothing could follow me inside that I didn't want to. After that, I started setting up a lot more of the chests, getting the different items organized and put through, and I'm just gonna mention it here. For some reason, this mod pack, and I will try to fix it before the public pack goes out, but a bunch of items just choose not to stack, and I don't know why, and it is an inventory management nightmare. You can see it in the bottom right-hand corner on my hotbar. I still don't know what caused it. I will try to figure it out, but oh boy, was that annoying for the whole video. I'm just gonna call it out so that you can be annoyed by it too, and not think that I'm too crazy. But I spent a little bit more time deforesting around the base itself, mainly just to get logs so that I could convert that into more chests to get more storage in position. With that all done, I dropped off all of the non-stackable items that I had collected. I fought with books that were refusing to stack for some reason or another, and believe me, it was not going well. What? This one book is cursed. It's, you know what? Burn the book. Burn the cursed book. I don't trust it. As I said, I would learn throughout this 100 days that for some reason that non-stackable bug is very common, but you know what? Just burn a little bit of book. Why not? But cursed book aside, I made myself a hammer, which gave me a hollow sphere as well. And this is one of the main new additions to this pack. This is Tetra, and is basically Tinker's Construct 2.0, which I am genuinely here for. It is also way more complicated and in-depth than anything that I've ever used before, and I am stupid, and I'm probably barely scraping the surface of this, but it is so cool. But using this, I'm able to modify my armor by adding different attachments, making tools into multi-tool variants, and wrapping things. But instead of explaining it, I want to show you my first reaction to using this system, basically in real time. Here you go. Okay, so it's better? I don't know. Requires a hollow sphere. String binding. Leather binding. Tier 2 cutting implement. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. This might be over my head. I added this mod to give some really cool crafting opportunities, and I think I might be too dumb for it. Or I need to go watch a whole bunch of tutorials on how to make that, on how to make these. But I have a pickaxe. So let's, oh no. Okay, we have to be very careful if it's getting closer. So with my tinkering and my frustration complete, I headed off to sleep, going into the next day where I was actually heading south to hit up the portal now that I had a diamond pickaxe in tow. And I edged a little too close to the Horde. Oh my god. It's already so much. And the problem is oh, what are you? There's also just ants eating trees. There's pillagers already too. Oh, there's way more than I thought. Oh my god, look at everything chasing me. Ow, 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 ow. It's trying to close a line around me. Ow. Oh my god. Half a heart. Oh, and they're chasing me. Oh my god, that was so close. Okay, we need to get the good stuff out of here ASAP. So I quickly mined up the gold blocks, and then it's time for everyone's favorite gag. And you gotta ask yourself, why do I do this the harder way for myself? Because I think it makes for a better video. So there you go. You can go to the nether if you want. I don't wanna. I like limiting how many of these anchors I can actually get. So that is a enchanting table and potentially 2 of the cures. Need some netherrack for reasons. I mean, I'm right next to this village. Might as well check it out while we're here. Oh, but do I want to go that way? Yeah, let's loot it quick. And it turned out hitting up that village was definitely the right play. There was a few of the houses that had full iron blocks sitting inside, a bunch of coal in the roof of another building, and a ton of redstone components and string via cobwebs that I could grab from other places. Plus, there's what I like to call the parkour towers that has just kind of one of each item across the top and a mini little parkour course surrounding a whole lot of campfires with some paper and other valuables inside. And it turns out that there was even more hidden underneath the village. Oh, okay. But I kept my attention here topside, checking out the remainder of the houses that I didn't loot the first time, grabbing things like the spare change that was sitting on their tables, finding some enchantments that, oh man, this helmet is just too good. Reactive 2. What does reactive do? Not knowing how to be reactive, I stole food, I cleaned cobwebs, so a bit of positive and negative reinforcement mixed together, heading down into the crypts to start taking on some zombies. This is probably gonna be one of the few times that I'm actually gonna be able to fight vanilla Minecraft mobs in this entire 100 days, so I'm here for it. I know down inside these crypts, especially if I were to get to some of the lower levels, I can get things like potion brewing ingredients. I can get upgraded swords, I can get diamond gear, I can get god apples if I'm lucky enough. I was grabbing the soul sand because that'll be useful for potions, using water to hold back the iron sword carrying skeletons as I was approaching the lowest level of the crypts. All of the iron, definitely awesome to have, breaking all of the spawners, and I told you I was gonna find some good stuff. Whoo! So actually I'll take it. Oh, hello buddy. Gold. Do I have unbreaking? Oh, I don't. So not being able to cash in on the goblin trader, I went to do a little bit more work down some of the other crypt passageways to get a few more things and check out the lower level from the other side of the somewhat bifurcated structure. Vanilla mobs, I'm taking on pretty easy, breaking all of the spawners, grabbing all of the apples, which are actually really important to have. So it's one of the main things I'm looting right now. Leaving things like coal and rotten flesh behind because I'm already pretty stocked up on those and inventory space is at a premium. Any enchanted books I see are a definite pickup. Any zombies that I'm dealing with are really good for getting experience so that I could get my gear enchanted at level 30 relatively quickly because I'm gonna need it. Fighting a whole lot of bones, which will be useful for growing crops at a really fast pace because I really can't sit down for a long time and farm in a single location. The following morning, I crafted up a second backpack for myself, using a lot of the resources that I had, upgrading it through diamond and gold right away, and dyeing this one, which I'd be able to then use as a sort of loot storage backpack. I put a lot of the unstackable items in there just to try to free up some space, moving things like the crying obsidian, the bones, the apples, the things that is good to have, but I don't need on me 100% of the time. And fully utilizing the bonus from that farmer hat, yeah, it's gonna make trading go my way.
This hat, wild.
Having restocked on ammunition for myself, I decided to head out of town before my continued presence here would be a risk for the horde starting to move in this direction. On the way back, I started to see some interesting new surface features.
Oh, that's the living rock. Oh, I need that. Oh, that's the brain. It's right there. Now I know.
Knowing where the node is a definite benefit. Having that location tells me where I need to assault and what I need to plan to attack. And having it on the surface is a vibe.
That looks so cool. So much cooler than when they were underground. Y'all team, you're crushing it. I hate it, but you're crushing it.
I slept out in the field going into day 17, where I arrived back at that second portal that I had found, spending the 15 seconds per block to break down the crying obsidian here, that I'd be able to have more purifiers in the bank. After that, it's time to find myself a horse, a ride in the apocalypse, and you know that they're not gonna make it, but we're gonna pretend that they will.
All right, this is a bit of a test because I don't know if I can use a horse to sort of bypass the Sculk. Nope. Dang. Oh, that would have been nice. Okay, so horse doesn't just bypass that. That's a problem.
But on horseback, I took a rather long trek north, just following the existing continent and trying to stay out of water to see just how much distance I could actually cover. Getting to some somewhat thin pieces of land, but making it to a point where the Sculk wasn't the only thing that was corrupting the terrain here. A huge patch of netherrack with an archaeologist planted right on top.
Interesting. What is this space? And what are you? What are you? Oh, archaeologist. What do you do? What do you do? Okay, I'm just gonna throw these three. Ancient vase, expert. So I have that. That's useful. The nether is interesting.
Nearby to that corruption was another nether portal with 2 more crying obsidian nearby, and that's huge. That's more than I had the entire last playthrough against the horde. But I hit the point where it was time to cross water, and you could lead a horse to water, but something ride.
I'm just gonna push you. Ha! Stupid seagulls. I'll put all my food in my backpack. You don't get any food. Screw you. I will push you across the river. Oh, slow.
Once I was safely on the other side, I took a quick nap in my sleeping bag, mining up a little bit of copper, and then trying to Skyrim horse my way around the edges, getting frustrated whenever I landed in the drink.
No!
But I headed towards another portal that I had just barely seen on my map, making a little bit of a parking spot for my horse, and then mining to see if I could find any crying obsidian here.
Wait, what does this do? Tablet of Disintegration. Experience gems are worth twice as much experience. Monsters show this way will not drop items. The ritual consumes source each time a monster is destroyed. That sounds really good, but I don't know what that is. I need to learn magic. I need to learn magic. I don't know magic. But I did see a way down here.
But I'm jumping into this cave for a reason. I need amethyst if I want to be able to craft the purity shards, which are necessary to be able to craft the cure for the infection. And I'm thinking a lush cave, I usually happen to find geodes embedded into lush caves. The only problem was this modded terrain was teasing me with the calcite. Not knowing what that latest advancement was for, I spent a little bit of time mining up the different ores, heading through a bunch of different tunnels into some pretty large caves that gave me a clear view for a good distance, but I wasn't finding any geodes. I am mining up any gold that I see, which I want to have. I'm mining up all of the diamonds so I can craft myself better armor. I'm using water to be able to drop down, finding some other Sculk that might not be the Horde kind, but is still just as infectious if you happen to stand on it, which does take your health away until you make it up to sunlight. But I continued working around the tunnels here, finding a small little campsite with a little bit of raw copper dropped inside and a bunch of raw gold.
Oh, that's a lot. That is awesome. Can I sleep down here?
I can. Continuing my exploration into the next day and finding a little peek, or at least a version of the future.
Oh, is this? It is! It's a trial chamber.
Now, this is a variant of the trial chamber, and it was made while they were still in development, which means certain things play very, very differently. For example, the breeze hits like a truck, 4.5 hearts with the breeze bomb instead of just throwing you for damage. So I ended up having to spend a couple golden apples fighting the mobs around here, jumping around from place to loot all of the different chests. But I was able to fight my way through the couple breezes, getting a couple breeze rods, getting jump scared by a mimic campsite that was down here inside the chambers, but it dropped something awesome.
Oh, snorkel. Oh, I only have one headspace.
Yep, that's right. I only have one head. That is something that I thought was valuable to add to the conversation. I don't want to hear about it in the comments. I just don't. Not allowed. But I continued exploring around the trial chamber, thinking that amethyst shards are in the pot drop loot table, and I'm not going to tell you how many times that took me to say, for the 1.21 trial chamber. So I'm thinking maybe they're inside all of the hidden pots here. And it turns out they were much more focused on things like copper or sticks, or a little bit of enchanted iron gear. So a much earlier version of that loot table, which meant despite fighting a ton of mobs here, I wasn't getting any amethyst.
I don't think they made amethyst part of the loot table.
Director's commentary notes, they did not, but I did spend a majority of the remainder of day 20 fighting my way through the remainder of the trial chambers and breaking all of the pots, getting a bunch of emeralds, a bunch of string, other useful things. All of it good. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to sound ungrateful, but nothing of it being the amethyst that was why I was down here in the caves in the first place. But I kept fighting my way through the trial chambers, breaking the remainder of the pots and getting a ton of copper, fighting a breeze till I was only down to about 2-3 hearts using my final golden apple, which they weren't stacking. Why aren't they stacking? Crafting up 8 more of them using all the gold and apples that I'd collected from here basically, before hitting a massive vault door and what looked like a clear final room for this version of the trial chambers. But I wasn't just confused by the puzzles, I was confused by my tools.
The module has settled. Arrested. I'm gonna be completely honest, y'all. I have no idea what that means. I am out of my depth with Terra.
Realizing that I likely wasn't finding any amethyst here, I marked the trial chamber and then swam back up to the surface, jumping on my horse, having to break the block as they're unable to clear a 2-block jump to exit the parking space. Heading along the very windy road underneath trees, on top of treetops, and along the hills, just trying to continue heading east, seeing what more is off in this direction and is there anything valuable. I eventually doubled back after I was through the dark forest and beyond, making my way back towards spawn, seeing the ominous growth in the distance.
Oh goodness, that's a lot. Lots of Sculk, lots of Sculk. And actually pretty close to base, so I gotta move fast on a couple things that I need to do before I need to be mobile.
Once back home, I dropped off a ton of enchanted materials, a whole bunch of blocks of different variants that I had been collecting, all of the different gear that was enchanted in different ways, some of it valuable, some of it not, making myself a couple more golden apples, and they don't stack. Why don't they stack? Why don't they stack? Making a bit of a combat backpack out of that blue one so that it can both be useful for carrying loot as well as carrying all my ammunition. And yes, this is an obvious mistake. Yes, I will pay for it later. The next morning, despite a successful adventure, I still desperately need amethyst, and I needed to find a way to find it.
And amethyst can be used on a bench.
Wait,
Magic find and scrying unused, causing magical creatures to glow and amethyst to be revealed.
oh, wait, that's awesome.
Hold up. We could just find some amethyst. Where am I? 146.60 -2. Okay, it's right next to the pyramid, which I think is safe for now. God, that's a jump scare every time. Oh, specifically archwood. Okay, that's a problem. Make ourselves a crafting upgrade while we're at it, quick.
Now having kind of a path, even though I don't have the materials for it, I made myself a crafting upgrade for my backpack, so I'd be able to make that dowsing rod out on the go whenever I would eventually find it. Seeing some other things off to the east that definitely caught my attention and made me think I should head off in that way. While I was at it, I'm like, wait a second, can I make wind charges? I got really excited to potentially make wind charges, but it just makes this staff, which gives you all of the upward momentum, but none of the you don't break your legs.
Interesting. Okay. I did not expect that to do that. Okay, all right. I thought that was gonna make me wind charges.
But not wanting to push my horse through water again, I parked them in a hole and then started swimming across the lake, running through the birch forest, passing by a sign that pointed back to the village, which is the desert one, which is now fully corrupted, coming up on one of those archwood trees, which would give me all of the magical wood that I would need. So I spent some time chopping all of that down, heading up on the edge of the netherified area and seeing some netherwort, which will be useful. I can break that down to turn it into potion ingredients.
Oh, as if one invasion wasn't already bad enough to deal with.
But I like this. This is fun. This is not just the world being corrupted by Sculk. The piglins are seeing that there's an opportunity here, so they're trying to make a break for it, using the same materials that they do in Minecraft Legends to break their way into the overworld with these towers that smash down and convert blocks to netherrack around them if left unchecked. And if you're just thinking, oh yeah, this is totally fine, don't worry about it, just stay away from that. You gotta be careful at the piglin brutes that are attempting to chase you down if you get complacent. This place is well fortified. It is their beachhead here in the overworld. But I thought, let's try to take out that tower. And I'm just gonna let this play.
Oh my God, this is taking so... Why was the first one so easy to kill? How many shots is this gonna take?
Yeah, I'm not sure that was a good use of my arrows. I'm just gonna, nope, I just don't think it was. That was until I went to loot the towers the next day.
No way. No way did that drop. I don't know why that drops netherite. Oh, that's busted. There's no way I should have, that shouldn't be a thing. I'm keeping it, but that shouldn't be a thing.
That is way too overpowered. Oh my god. So if it weren't for the fact that I had banned myself from the nether, I probably wouldn't let myself keep these. A netherite ingot for destroying one of those towers. All right, that's wholeheartedly worth about 30 arrows. What an amazingly positive trade. But now remembering why I had been out in the first place, I made myself a dowsing rod, seeing some small purple dots down deep underground and realizing, oh yeah, that's how it shows me that there's amethysts down here. I started digging directly down in a 2x1 column, and I am very glad I didn't just dig straight down.
Okay, that's a problem.
I kept staircasing my way until eventually, with great effort and down about a full 100 blocks, I started getting closer. There, I did see some sparkling blocks, which I was able to break down to get geodes. So that's kind of cool.
Find a geode. What do I do with you? Workbench. Oh, okay.
Eventually making it through all of the limestone, calcite, and into the amethyst blocks proper. It's actually the budding blocks that are marked by the dowsing rod, which is really good. It gives me a really clear indication of where not to mine as I'm in the process of breaking this whole thing down. I did realize that I could take the blocks and grindstone them down, but that's a big investment into create we're gonna have to do. But it is gonna give me the amethyst shards in basically bulk, so we might kinda need to do that. The only problem was this geode had barely been loaded for a few minutes, so none of the amethyst had really grown. I only had about a dozen shards worth in my inventory, even though I had collected a whole lot in blocks. So I headed back through the magical forest, swimming across the river and running through the woods back to my horse's house I go.
I don't even want to think about what that's going to look like when it's infected. That's going to be horrifying. Oh, look, another spider dungeon. No, thank you. Here's a question. Where did I park?
Legundo and losing his horse in the Sculk apocalypse. Name a more iconic duo. I did finally find the parking space, riding the horse back over towards home, using them to check up and over the hill as it was easier to ascend with their assistance, seeing just how close the horde was getting.
We're looking a little close. I am gonna have to move quickly. Ow.
Once home, I used the dowsing rod, hoping to find something a little bit closer that had been loaded and therefore grown. And thankfully, off in the distance, pretty close by, I did see a few purple specks. I used some water to make my way down into the lush cave, and this one was a little bit higher, plus I had more cave access, so the gems were soon mine.
Yes! Okay. We got a hit.
Spent a bit of time breaking down all of the blocks surrounding the budding blocks, being jump scared by the grave mine devolving.
Oh, that's not good.
So just as I'm preparing to start crafting the cure, or at least crafting some antibiotics to fight back, the grave mine has now evolved to its third state, meaning it is at its most intelligent, it is at its most active, and is now going to be actively seeking out new hosts to add to the mass instead of just growing out in random directions. Here's where it becomes a much more virulent threat. But I need to think about the now. So I'm working my way through the caves, getting jump scared by a goblin buddy, where I had been saving a whole lot of raw gold just in case I ran into them.
Oh, my friend, I'm about to make you very happy. Friend, come here, come here, come here. Iron, gold.
I bought a whole bunch of gunpowder from them as well, ending up with multiple stacks of smelted materials pretty quickly, making my way up the water and then blocking to get to the other side, climbing the side of the cave, heading into the house and getting bitten by a Komodo dragon.
Ow. Seriously, I have so much more to deal with than you right now.
And you made me kill a bee.
It's your fault. I do not have time for that right now. We're in the apocalypse.
Okay, we're gonna need a lot. But now I need to start thinking about how I'm going to assault the Sculk. And that is not only with the purification flasks to push it back, but with potions that will allow me to stand on the Sculk without taking that kind of gloom corruption damage every tick. But to do that, I need blaze rods. To do that, I need a burner. To that, I need a multi-step process in create to make myself blaze rods without going to the nether. I know I've used the netherless plugin a lot in some of the recent 100 days videos, including most recently in my Waterworld one, but I like not going to a complete different dimension in the middle of a very themed adventure. It would have made sense in the nether because there's just infinite land and lava in a world that's supposed to be wet, and wouldn't make sense here, because even if it's hell, escaping to another dimension to avoid the horde, who wouldn't make that call? The nether is maybe not hospitable, but it's survivable. I mean, go watch my 100 days in the nether. Anything to not become part of the flood. But I started getting myself with the initial setup, a water wheel for the force, a few different gear interchanges to build up a tiny bit of speed, setting up the press, overcalculating it, going back one gear exchange, setting up the press again, and immediately smushing down some copper for pipes and some iron for plates. I'm getting into the fluid dynamics of it a little bit sooner because I know I'm gonna need a pump, a spout, and some pipes in order to pipe lava onto the coal rods, which would then allow me to get everything going. But I can just kind of ramshackle this a little bit, throwing down the basin right here, making myself a strip log and a singular copper casing, then going back over to the Tetra table while things process, trying to figure out how I can actually open these geodes. It turns out I actually need to hold the hammer to do that. I made myself an iron hammer thinking, there you go, that's what I needed. And then realized it was the wrong kind of hammer.
Oh, that's the wrong hammer. I made the wrong I made a bonking hammer.
So wasting a block and a half worth of iron for a weapon that I will genuinely never use, I made myself an iron pickaxe, then used the stone hammer to press the different ends of the iron pickaxe into an iron hammer, which then gave me a tier 3 hammer, which allowed me to break open the geodes, which gave me random materials, useful, positive, 10 out of 10, no notes. But I once again had a little bit of a controller mishap in my celebration.
Oh God, what have I done? I still have a negative idea how this Tetris stuff works. I really want to know, because it seems really cool. I'm also really dumb, and I got nothing. 882, 164. Okay, I need kelp. We need kelp. Let's go. We're running.
The next morning, the next ingredient I need for all of my create contraptions is kelp. So I jumped on my horse and started heading due east, hoping that the water that I saw on the very edges of my map was a cold ocean biome where kelp would actually generate. With this horse having no jumps, navigating the woods is a little bit of a trouble, but it is better than burning my own saturation by covering all of this distance on foot, and they are faster, so it's a plus. I ended up on another one of those small shacks, now having a brush, an iron version actually, upgraded is available in this mod. I was able to do some archaeology from the grave and then break a pot inside, getting attacked by some silverfish. From there, I made it to the shoreline where I was able to break a few pieces of kelp, grabbing half a stack from my pockets just to have that in the future. And that was kind of all I was out here for, immediately turning around and doing the same somewhat tedious trip over the hills, through the woods, and back over the river, over towards the jungle base, arriving later in the night, smelting up a single piece of kelp for the spout that I need, and planting the rest in the pond directly in front of the base so I could have more for the future. An entire day for one dried out plant. Look, when it comes to the apocalypse, we all have our priorities. Day 27, I hooked up the spout, so now I'd be able to use that to spray lava, running to a lava pool that was actually relatively close to the house and grabbing my first couple buckets.
Ow. Broke my ankles without warning.
Thankfully, this isn't an Oregon Trail situation where breaking my ankle means I'm gonna die of dysentery or something like that. Pumping all of the lava into the system, or, well, attempting to, having to reset the gear on the pipe and create just hurts my brain.
Okay, so that can get me towards blaze rods, which requires coal rods, requires sandpapering coal blocks.
So I ran out and grabbed a piece of sand, which you use to make sandpaper. And this is probably my favorite recipe in all of Create and my favorite animation, as it looks like you're eating the coal blocks to turn them into the rods. But I set that down on the depot, having it sprayed with lava, then setting up the press on one of these slower gears, which is agonizingly slow to get it to work.
Oh God, this is so painfully slow.
Going through the multi-step process of lava, press, lava, press, lava, press, making myself a singular blaze rod.
Yes. Okay. Now to get a whole bunch of amethyst, I need to get to this. So I need to do that whole process 5, 6, 7 more times. Oh boy. Let's let that go. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. This is everything I need to convert.
So setting up this process meant that I needed to make a few more buckets and go and get a whole bunch more lava, setting that into the system, having to deal with the fact that after I tried to do the batch, I always had to kind of stop and restart after one to have the remainder continue to process, making myself the empty blaze burner with a little bit of netherrack and going through the multi-step sequence, getting a little bit of sand and converting that into glass so that I can make the potion bottles, heading up to the upper levels where I had hidden the brewing stands, bringing them down and getting jump scared by my friend.
Hi, buddy.
But I moved the brewery down to the lowest level, getting the water bottles filled and setting them to brew with netherwort, having the awkward potions ready to go once I get a little bit further. I spent a little bit more time siphoning off lava, pressing coal rods, getting everything right next to each other, that it worked a little bit quicker and I'm able to work in a pretty good succession here. Finally getting enough blaze rods to be able to basically create life.
Yes. Okay. So those are awkward potions. Now the tricky part is I need... Okay. So I need Silk Touch. Awesome. You're set up, buddy.
But now that I needed Silk Touch in order to be able to actually get the Sculk to brew the potions that I need, I crafted up a whole bunch of bookcases and then headed up to an upper area that was just big enough for a level 30 enchanting setup, setting up all of the bookcases there and trying out enchanting on this new pick.
Heck yeah. Okay, so I get some unbreaking. Oh, I need Silk Touch. Sharpness, fire, smite.
But with no luck on enchanting the pickaxe, I made myself an iron hoe and thought, let's try Tetra to see what this can do.
Claw can be used for prying things over and quickly break most wooden blocks. Digging and chopping. Enchant? Oh, I just have to, so I can enchant a specific... Wait, you can enchant via this thing? Oh, this is cool. Hoe can be used for harvesting plants and tilling soil. It already is a hoe. That's so interesting. I need Silk Touch. Oh my God, I got it. Okay. Okay. We can start fighting back. We can start fighting back.
With some really good luck with my iron/wooden tool now, I did a little bit of checking into what exactly I could add to this sword to give me some other functionality, checking out what exactly this could do, and like I said, this Tetra stuff is really cool, and I do kind of figure it out by the end of the video, but right now, super early on, I didn't want to just sit here looking at menus for days and days on end, and instead kind of spent the time, you know, trying to fight the apocalypse, so that way I could go out and save the world and everything.
I need so much. Oh wait, I need this. I need this. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. We're gonna have to... Oh, there's so much stuff I need. Okay. Prep for later.
So, armed with an enchanted iron hoe, which would get me the blocks that I need, I jumped on my horse, headed south, and started breaching into the outer ranges of where the Sculk had consumed, grabbing just a few blocks in my pockets, unlocking a sneak advancement, and then being not so sneaky. Ah, dang it. And it's clear, while it's all kind of sunshine right now, and it looks like just a few blocks across the world, this thing had already consumed quite a bit. But with a little bit of Sculk that I needed, kind of a sample to start working on some inoculations for myself, I made my way back over toward the jungle base, brewing up some Sculk resist potions. This would allow me to stand on the Sculk, giving me some extra hearts that would kind of insulate me from its corruptive efforts. The only problem was, it was a somewhat limited prototype. Oh, you can't make them longer? Oh, that sucks. That's only 90 minutes. It's only 9 minutes. Oh no! Okay, we gotta move fast. So since I wouldn't be able to extend the duration at all, I started brewing myself up a ton of these potions, making them all splash so I could quickly apply them on myself, hoping that it could be what I would need to be able to venture deep into the corruptive areas to be able to take on the nodes and break them down. I used the Tetra table to repair my kind of combination pickaxe using all of the different materials here, and also realizing I could hone it to upgrade it on certain attributes, meaning it was a little bit faster now, which it got that way from just using. No complaints. That's pretty cool, actually. The following morning, though, it's time to go fight the Horde. Being able to see exactly where that node had grown here on the surface is really useful. The fact that it's pretty close to the base and far away from everything so far is both concerning in the reach that it allows, but also nice in the fact that I don't have to deal with a massive area that I can only approach from one front. So I started trying to go up and over the hill, seeing how that would get me, and then just deciding leave the horse here, have the horse survive for now, and approach in via land, sneaking in and trying to disarm the sensors while relying on the Sculk resist potion to give me that extra bit of time to stand on the goop. It did mean that I would have to break it though occasionally, as it's not full immunity. It is purely just some extra time and some delays. And that wasn't what I expected initially. That's part of the pack that I guess I hadn't tested fully. But it does work, and it does actually make it even more exciting. I have to take on all of these mobs and get in here quickly. So I only have 3 ender pearls to my name, and I can just barely see the node and throw to it now. This opportunity won't exist in the future. So I pearled on and just started blowing it up. The only problem was those nodes had been reinforced for explosions, and I need to break my way through the outer shell to be able to actually get in there and have the bombs do any real significant damage. Well, my attack on the node immediately put the Horde into an aggressive mode, trying to focus on spreading, sending out a bunch of phantoms, making these secondary Sculk patches that started to grow back towards the main body, meaning I had more distance to cover, meaning I could probably not try that trick with purling again if I wasn't fast. But it was also just sending a ton of mobs my way, most of them fish. Oh my god, look at all the fish! Oh my god, look at all the infested fish! So since a inoculation wasn't really going to be a good route, unfortunately, we had to go with a little bit more pesticides, mining up a bit of sand to start making bottles and taking a quick nap on this side of the river. The only problem being, I wasn't the only thing on this side of the river. Wait, no. Oh, that's so bad. Okay. Because this is going to get so much mass from all the plant life with this jungle. Get out of here. The Horde is a lot more aggressive in its spread and being able to venture out and create these kind of disparate, disconnected pockets. Whereas previously, it primarily grew underground and then would erupt up at a point and or spread out from a central area slowly. Now it's more aggressive, it's smarter, it knows to go and venture off and create multiple fronts to spread me even thinner. So I need to work fast. I grabbed a whole bunch of sand, running back towards the house, dropping off a lot of the blocks and other things that I had collected, trying to hone my axe so it could be a little bit faster and hopefully break through that kind of outer shell on the node. I smelted up a ton of sand into glass, making bottles, making purification flasks. These throwable glowy gold bottles will push the Horde back. It will uncorrupt a lot of the land that it consumes and carve me a path towards the node. The only problem is using it usually upsets every Sculk Horde in a mile's radius. Wait, my horse. Oh no, it's like certainly dead, right? There is no way that it's not. Oh, I am a horrible, horrible horse owner. Oh my god. But realizing that I had sacrificed yet another horse to the Horde, I spent a little bit more time honing my tools, organizing my inventory, resting so that I could be able to take things on, digging through a hill just to try to upgrade this pickaxe a little bit, or at least understanding how fast the hoe attachment on it would make it when mining out dirt and sculk. And it cooks, which is super useful. It's gonna allow me to actually do some damage here. I focused on sniping the spore spewers from a distance, finding a little bit of a path of how I could make my way in, giving myself purity and sculk resistance before throwing down a purification flask and starting to push out. It immediately caused mobs to spawn, pushing back against me because the Horde doesn't want to be purified. The Horde wants to eat. But it is creating these kind of paths of dirt that I could use to make my way through the corrupted land, trying to get towards the node without having my health constantly ticked down. What do I even do about that? They could just give you... Great, they give you super cancer. Awesome. Thankfully, it's only the more infectious parts of the Horde that do that corruptive effect. And standing on the node, which is more focused on defense rather than offense and consumption, doesn't tick down my health. Also, thankfully, my shaders still seem to be incompatible with the darkness effect, but at least you all can see what's going on right now in this part of the video. Boom. Yes! All right. With this node defeated, I jumped down into the cavity to pick up the chunk o' brain that was left behind, looking around to see if there were any hives that had resin nearby, panicking when I saw that a new raid target has been sent out to be investigated, and then celebrating when it almost immediately says, nope, no raid here. Raid prevented, woo! I didn't even know I was trying to prevent a raid. I did try to mine up some of the living rock, but it seemed too fragile for this combination tool and would require something a little bit more specialized to be able to actually get the drops from it.
Out of character, it's just a mod compatibility issue, but I really like that excuse, so we're gonna go with it for the story.
But in trying to get all of that, I ended up setting off a couple different sensors, angering the Horde and pushing me back out of the area as it started to slowly grow and reconsume the areas that I had purified, node or no. It has its territory that it wants, it's just a little bit dumber, a little bit slower, and it's going to take more time. There's still mobs that are going to be running at me from these lands. There's still things I'm going to need to fight in the mites, the zombies, the things it's already consumed. Killing the node spends a ton of mass, removes it from the Horde, and slows it down. It does not stop everything. The only way to do that is to attack it at its center. And the only way to do that is to spend a lot of time breaking down the nodes to slow it down enough where you'd actually have a window to be able to make it in without getting jumped by 1,000 Ravagers spawned on your face. But returning back home, I crafted myself up a new bow, trying to see what I could do to enhance that with tetra Ultra, improving the string on it, realizing that the draw time on this is gonna be a little bit weird, and then figured, you know what, let's go for broke, upgrading it to gold, hoping that that would take better enchants and allow me to fight at range a little bit more effectively. I also made myself just a vanilla diamond pickaxe, thinking maybe that very specialized tool would be enough to get the drops from the living rock blocks. But as I was organizing my inventory and getting things together, I got a little trigger happy. That was a waste. Oh, that's upsetting. And that wasn't the only problem that I had. Despite breaking down the node, the Horde had started making some progress in my direction and had a new patch of corruption just about 200 blocks from my base, which is not enough distance. I spent some time trying to mine everything back using a bow and arrow to fight the skeletons, whose new acid projectiles do a ton of damage over time. So getting hit even just once puts you on the back foot for a solid amount of time. It's like poison, but way worse because it can kill. So I ended up just kind of hiding inside, recovering from stake, and hoping that the Horde around me wouldn't notice the beds inside that it would mark as a priority target. The next morning, I was able to snipe and kill the Ravager's rider, which is somehow the more dangerous part of that combo, killing the mount shortly after, and then having to fight with phantoms, which give you this kind of super tumor, which also does damage over time if you don't have the purity effect active. But mobs are spawning in and causing me a whole lot of problems, and killing them is causing more blocks to drop, making that distance between the Horde and my home shorter and shorter with every moment. But I had to stop and recollect myself, going back and remembering, oh yeah, I was gonna enchant this bow, getting some lucky rolls. But I actually redirected my attention, fighting less on the patch of Sculk that was closest to my base and heading back over towards where the node was before that area was fully reclaimed by the Horde, trying to get to a few of the hives around here as well as the living rock, both of those having key elements that I would need to be able to craft the purifier machines instead of the flasks that are the real long-term solution to the Horde. And it did not want me to get this, throwing skeletons and vindicators at me throughout the entire day, getting me down to, and I only noticed this in editing, at one point, 0 health. I had only the absorption hearts. I have no idea how I survived that. Oh my god, that was so close. And I might have a better weapon now in my bow, but those acid projectiles hurt and they aren't cleared by purity, which means if you get hit, you're taking that damage, which drove me back and away from the Horde into the water, swimming up the river and back towards home. I had to deal with those corrupted fish who were chasing me out of the river, seeing a new spire and a new kind of section of Sculk growth and thinking maybe this is my chance to corrupt and infect the crying obsidian I've been collecting in order to be able to make the crying souls, which I can start as another ingredient, the rarest of those ingredients for the purifiers. So I put down the crying obsidian as the Horde was kind of growing forward, and it immediately halted, but every time I tried to go in and recover it, break it back down with my pickaxe, a ton of mobs would spawn as there was multiple summoners in really close proximity. So I'm at this weird spot where it's not taking the blocks, but it won't let me have them either, and I have to fight back and forth just to try to gain these few blocks of ground. The only benefit here is eventually it spawned a corrupted creeper, which when it explodes infects a whole lot of terrain surrounding it, and it's a really good way of getting crying obsidian infected, which I was able to do, breaking down and getting 2 of the blocks to corrupt. I checked underneath the hive that was right here, and nothing had yet been grown. No resin was available for harvesting, but pushing in that far spawned another wave of mobs, including multiple Ravagers, which forced me to pull back, fighting mainly at range and relying on the flame enchant, getting a 3rd infected crying obsidian, and then kind of giving up, mining the other 3, putting them in my pocket, noticing a massive ravine right here that I had somehow not fallen down into and calling it a night right there on the shore. But I'm on a roll here. I want to try to take advantage as much as I can of the time where the horde is running around without a node to guide it, and it's kind of in this defensive holding pattern. I made my way in towards the Sculk land itself, just kind of tanking the corruption damage, getting a little bit closer to a few of those living rock spires, and I was right. Relying on a vanilla pickaxe would allow me to get all of the drops from here, including the blocks themselves, which add a whole new level of defense I can make. But I'm relying on both the purifiers and my hoe to carve a path through here, just a few blocks wide, that if I step too far left or right, my health would start ticking down. It does require me to kind of play around all of the sensors, which once a bunch of Ravagers spawn would push me back. It's actually, mainly, I'm mentioning the Ravagers because they're big and bulky, but those skeletons are the things I'm most scared of now. They went from kind of the most joke of enemies with awful range and awful targeting to the primary threat of the horde. But I did see a corrupted creeper on the coast where I was able to plop down another crying obsidian, getting them to explode to be able to infect that. Running back towards home once I purified myself so I wouldn't be tracked via the lure effect, to craft up a few of those ward blocks, which would allow me to defend my base. After that, I spent a little bit of time enhancing my pickaxe at the Tetra table, crafting down the crying obsidian into their crying souls forms, having 5, which is awesome this early in the game. But the thing I'm missing right now is resin and calcite, and that's going to require another expedition deep into the infected zone. I need to focus on defense right now while I have the time to do so. So I spent some time burning down all of the trees around my base, because if I'm going to carve a line in the sand, the last thing I want to do is allow for a really easy path right over those blocks that would allow the horde to jump my defenses. As that was burning, I just made a line, throwing down all of the purity blocks, trying to see if I can make a barrier surrounding my space that would keep the jungle temple safe from the horde as it would encroach forward. That did require jumping down into the caves, trying to go down and find a bit more gold, any iron that I could grab, which is always useful, but mainly hitting up the amethyst here, breaking down all of the different amethyst clusters to get as many shards as possible that I could then use that with golden apples to make as many purity shards as I could to be able to make more ward blocks. The recipe is pretty generous, but it does require a lot on the base materials. Once back into the base, I disenchanted a few of the swords that I had that weren't really giving me good enchants, heading to the enchanting table to try to re-roll for something good, doing a couple grindstone passes before seeing a looting 2 enchantment, which I wasn't able to get. I was below level 30 right now, but that would be useful, so I saved that for later. But I also want to get into a lot more as far as potions, and I'm gonna need to get to brass to get to those crushing wheels to be able to get a lot of amethyst, because the rate I'm getting it from the geodes just isn't going to cut it. I need more. So I crafted up a whisk and started kind of refactoring the create area right in the lobby of my base to go from lava pumping and pressing to enough velocity to be able to power that whisk, and trying to set up all of the gears for a vertical to horizontal conversion. I went out and I grabbed a whole bunch of kelp thinking I'll use belts. I'll set that all up, smelting that. And the next morning, I'm gonna admit, I kind of struggled here. I'm not gonna lie. I fought with these create things for a while, breaking it down, setting up multiple different gear exchanges, overstressing the system, understressing the system, overstressing myself, before just giving up crafting a gearbox, which would allow me to make the transition from one dimension to another, and finally getting the whisk in play.
What a mess.
With that done, I did some inventory organization, crafting a whole lot of things down into blocks, looking at what I needed to do to mix up brass, and then realizing, oh yeah, it's not actually andesite alloy that you use.
Oh, it's not copper. It's this stuff. Or it's not andesite. It's this stuff. Oh.
So I went to sleep with a little bit of shame, I'm not gonna lie, jumping back down into the cave the following day, mainly running around mining zinc, as I need a whole bunch of it. I also, while I'm here, I'm like, I'm in the caves, I'm doing a mining day. So I spent time mining up any gold that I could find, any redstone that I could find, finding a little bit of a dripstone cave, which looked ominous, but really awesome. But checking through that branch of the cave system, it led me towards another mimic. Haha, crystal heart. Oh, yes. 5 extra hearts is huge. It allows me to take so much more damage. It allows me to play a little bit more aggressively. But, and probably most critically, it's just more time that I don't need to worry about the corruptive effects of standing on Sculk. Combining that with potions would actually let me kind of fight my way in as a scout instead of having to announce myself with big bottles of pesticide whenever I wanted to go in and attack the Horde. I kept mining into the morning of day 40, finding some diamonds, getting really deep down into the deep slate layer at this point, picking up a whole bunch of different resources and mining my way up back into a lush cave as I'm continuing going from glowing ore to glowing ore. I did find a second geode, which allowed me to really kind of boost my amethyst reserves for right now. This one had fully grown as well, which is good, but it only had a few nodes exposed, so it wasn't a massive come up, more just a little shot in the arm. But in trying to get back up to the surface, I did dig up underneath lava, which is never good. Whoops. Okay, let's go back around instead of trying to dig my way up. Heading back through another tunnel, grabbing some more gold, finding some diamonds in another one of these small underground camps. But I was actually excited for the feathers because that would allow me to craft up a whole bunch more arrows. I was attacked by the chest that was here, it dropping a pair of boots, and these are the Aqua Dashers, which allow me to run on water. And that level of mobility in this scenario is huge. Just an awesome find. I was actually more excited about this than the 5 extra hearts, I'm not gonna lie. But I did a little bit more digging, finding another geode that only had a few clusters to work with and a couple more diamonds, eventually just giving up and digging straight up, pillaring my way through a little bit of a nerd pole, breaking into the surface in the middle of the jungle just west of my base. And I had already forgotten that I had found those boots. Oh, that's weird. Look, I'm unlocking all sorts of powers. I'm not saying I'm the savior of the multiverse, but I'm also not saying I'm the savior of the multiverse. The next day, I spent some time dumping all of my inventory into the appropriate chests, doing my best to stay organized, upgrading that iron wood tool to all iron, and then repairing and upgrading my diamond bone pickaxe as well. I don't have like a good singular name for these tools. Maybe you could suggest one, but I'm struggling. All of the zinc was smelting, and I was able to take some of that over towards the mixer to finally get brass starting to mix up. I then did some research into what it would take to make the automated crafters. And I'm gonna need a whole lot of redstone. I'm gonna need some quartz, which without going to the nether is going to require me to haunt some amethyst. So here's yet another use for amethyst. I made myself up a new fan with a separate water wheel just for that, as it was starting to overtax me, changing that system back and forth to support one machine or another. Setting that up with its own set of gear interchanges and doing it off in this little alcove where it could kind of just be, and I didn't have to worry about it. It could just be running over here, and I could switch it between haunting and lava and bulk blasting and just use it wherever else I wanted to. I set that up with one of the pieces of soul sand I had collected from the zombie crypts a few days back, using that to haunt a couple pieces of amethyst into quartz, which would allow me to then craft the Nixie tubes with a whole lot more redstone. But first, I set that up to be able to do bulk blasting a little bit later with some glass, taking a quick nap, and on day the meaning of life, it was time to upgrade all of my armor to diamond. If I'm going to survive in this world long term, I'm going to need better stuff, so I enchanted my sword, getting looting, which is going to be really helpful, getting protection on almost all of the pieces of armor that I have, and stepping outside to immediately get attacked by a bunch of Komodo dragons. I might be trying to save the world. It's still going to try to eat me though. Law of the jungle and all that. But I need a whole bunch of lava, and the closest lava pool I know of is in the middle of this pile of goop. So I used a bunch of purifying flasks, fighting the mobs that were attacking just to try to push things back. I didn't like how close this was getting to my base, and I definitely wanted to give myself a bit more time. I harvested up several buckets of lava and then used the upgraded diamond pickaxe hoe, which again, I need a better name for that. Using that to basically harvest up a ton of Sculk, getting me up above level 30 so I could do some top tier enchanting. And I'm really glad I spent the time to push back this front of the infection because, well, no, where? With another node spawned, the Horde is once again going to be more intelligent and capable of executing raids and attacking me at a distance, but also just growing more aggressively. And I want this front as far away as possible from my home as I can manage. So the following morning, I just spent more time breaking this down. I manually harvested back as far as I could, getting to one of the hives and actually being able to get a whole bunch of resin, breaking the hive as well, just so that the Horde's growth will be slowed in this area. But I can only fix things on the surface. Oh, why is there a cave? So I thought, okay, let's call it for now and back up. I went back into the house using some of the lava I had just collected to allow me to bulk blast a lot of the raw materials that I have, smelting them all instantaneously at the stack level, which is just awesome. Honestly, if there's one mod that I'd want to see added to vanilla Minecraft, it's Create. I think everything in it works really well. It balances in nicely with vanilla mechanics, and it just brings a lot more depth to everything. I love this mod. I have so much fun with it, and I can't wait to see more. But I condensed a lot of what I had down into block form just so it would take up as little space in my inventory as possible, getting a whole bunch of items which refuse to stack, but thankfully the ones that could be crafted into blocks and back make that a solvable problem, as all of the ingots out of the block variant all seem to have the same MBT and stack nicely. But I spent a little bit of time cracking all of the geodes that I had in my backpack and had been collecting for one reason or another, getting some things like diamonds and lapis, always good. Doing a little bit more enchanting since I had level 30, really low rolling and getting protection 3 and only protection 3 on a level 30 enchant. I cannot believe I got cheated and then got cheated again with only getting efficiency 3. I did a couple re-rolls using that top button on the helmet, but didn't really see anything too good. So I just kind of settled for protection 2. So I'd be a little bit more durable, be able to survive, to be able to get better enchants. But that was just an absolute awful day at the casino, my friend. That did not go well. But I need a bunch of materials, including a bunch of arrows if I'm going to take on the Horde, and I have a way to get them, but it's going to be risky. Oh God, this village is about to be attacked. All right, let's see if this works. Good to know that consumes it. It seems like despite me having purity, the second I warped into this village, it was immediately under attack. Maybe I had just timed it poorly and I arrived when the Horde was going to consume it anyway. Maybe the fact that I loaded the chunks by warping into here meant the Horde suddenly is like, oh yeah, we should go eat everything in that village. I don't know, but things turned to chaos quickly. Multiple phantoms attacking me, a bunch of different skeletons holding some of the angles, and mites burrowing into almost all of the villagers, and myself making small piles of goop that would spawn fish, skeletons, and other mobs to just compound on the problem. And the worst part of all, I'm pretty sure the Fletcher for the town had gotten eaten. So after being forced out of town by just overwhelming damage, I had to mine up some gravel, trying to break that down into flint as I healed, getting to pretty late into the night. And by now the village had already been half consumed. Oh no. I had a quick nap so it would be daytime because the last thing I want to do is get jumped without seeing what's going on. Running over water to get back into the village. I'm never going to get used to that ability. Finding a few lockers full of food that I was able to smelt up and then throwing down the fletching table, immediately buying all of the arrows I could from one of the fletchers here and being able to put my bow to work, taking out some of the phantoms, hoping to slow down the consumption of this village since they're spewing out spores, which makes the Sculk grow faster. But it just all went so south so quickly. Oh, this is so bad. How did this get so bad? I just got here. Okay. That's an adze and a hoe, so neither one of those help. So, do I have an axe in here? I do. $850, $156. That's around here, isn't it? That's around here. I need to be very careful because that's close by. I headed back over to the Fletcher, once again buying their entire stock, getting as many arrows as I can because I'm going to need all of them and probably several dozen stacks more if I'm going to make a dent against anything right here. I was once again burrowed, so I had to wait for the mites to try to attack me, breaking down some of the hives, having the bees attack me and also be mad at me. But breaking that down allowed me to train a villager to become a farmer, trying to trade for potatoes and carrots, which I could then trade for more emeralds, which I could convert into more arrows, so I could actually fight the horde a little bit longer. But all the trade refreshes were locked. It was that period in the middle of the day where all the villagers take a siesta, so nobody felt the motivation to work despite the fact that their village was being consumed by goop. So I thought, okay, let's go into mitigation phase here. I broke down all of the plants I had from around here, trading as much of them as I could into the villager to be able to get just a few more emeralds, fighting whatever phantoms were spawning, and they were spawning pretty frequently. But breaking that down also allowed me to deny mass from the horde, and it's a good thing because some of the more aggressive mobs started to spawn, like Ravagers and those skeletons who just do an insane amount of damage, forcing me into the river where the fish could try to nibble at me instead. They can run on water too? The fish are too oh my god, this is so bad. But I slept on the outskirts of the village and realized it was over. So I saw a small structure, which I figured, let's go check out. Oh, that's so good. Like a little burial chamber. I feel bad desecrating a grave, but desperate times, desperate measures. I want to look at that village. It is. Oh, this is. Yeah, this is fine. This is like the third least bad thing I've done the entire video so far. And then it was one final push, going in, grabbing things like XP bottles, any hay bales, any pearls that I saw on display, anything that could be useful, because nobody here is going to need it real soon. Seeing the apples for sale in one of the stalls reminded me that, oh yeah, apples are a farmer trade, and I'm going to need a ton of golden apples, almost as much as I'm going to need amethyst if I'm going to make a cure. So I spent some time leveling up a farmer. First one kind of struck out, they didn't sell apples. Leveling up a second one by trading in a ton of carrots, getting an apple trade and buying over a stack of apples. That might feel like a bad investment. I use almost every single one of those, all right? This was a good play. I immediately ran to the closest crafting table I could find in one of the houses, crafting up as many golden apples as I could muster, and then converting a good majority of those into over a stack of purity shards. And I finally basically have the cure to this plague in my backpack. But that also meant that I was out of gold. I had nothing left. But I don't need to worry about that for a minute. I converted all of my crying souls into pure souls, which took about half of all of the purity shards I had just crafted. So you see how immediately I needed a bunch of this, taking a look at what I can make with it. But at this point, I just started heading out of town, letting the horde consume it in my wake, mining up a little bit of sand on the side of the river as the sun started to set to prepare myself for the next day. I continued in my easterly direction the following morning, coming up on a savanna village where I immediately set all of that sand to smelt into glass, not wanting to wait to get back home to use the bulk blasting, but also using my silk touch tools to break down the glass in the walls for some free come-ups. I grabbed a little bit of string from the spiderwebs, a diamond that was hidden underneath the stairs, some food from the closet, anything that could be useful. But when I headed back away from there, starting to make my way back towards home, turns out they were actively under a raid, which this was a bit of a risk. This is gonna be a big play. But if a raid is active right now, that means the Horde's attention is entirely focused at consuming that village, the one in front of me. And it's not going to be able to muster enough mass to spawn mobs to defend some of its more core areas. So if I can figure out where the node is, or if I can get closer towards the living rock structures near spawn, I can get some key materials from deep inside Sculk territory without having to worry about as many mobs attacking me. Now, there's still a whole bunch that are attacking me. As I made my way in on the river, I'm setting off a whole bunch of sensors, which is summoning a bunch of Ravagers, a bunch of skeletons. But it is somewhat mitigated by the raid being active. I saw a few hives immediately along the riverbed, using my shears to break whatever resin I could out of the structures growing underneath those, sleeping quickly to keep it during daytime so I wouldn't have to worry about darkness as it was continuing the attack on the village. I used a bunch of purification flasks to make myself a bit of a beachhead, breaking down whatever blocks I could to make sure I wasn't taking the corruption damage from standing on the Sculk. And I was able to get within eye shot of the node in the middle of all of those massive living rock spires before I realized I don't have any explosives and I don't have the string I need to craft them. So I'm dealing with mobs right here, just being passively spawned from my proximity towards the Skulk's brain. I'm breaking down whatever Sculk I can to try to give myself a bit of space when I see the pyramid in the distance and think maybe, just maybe, if this mod dev used cobwebs as a decorative block inside of that structure, I could use that to get myself the string that I need to be able to craft up the TNT. And that's why I love the custom recipe that is in the pack, because it kind of forces you to do a whole bunch of things, not just hoard a bunch of gunpowder and sand. So I ran over the last little bit of the Sculk, tanking the tiniest bit of corruption damage, making my way in, and it was really weird setting off the traps here and fighting husks, like good old-fashioned vanilla Minecraft husks. I broke this spawner here, and this is one of those moments where we would get to come back to it later and be like, Legundo will remember that. If I was playing one of those choose your own adventure kind of games, it would have the butterfly in the corner of like, this was a critical decision. I'm not going to tell you why, I'm not going to tell you how, but breaking this spawner did make the end game even more complicated. That's it. Leave a comment so you know you were here when the butterfly effect took effect. But back into real time, I was lighting all of the braziers around here, thinking maybe this works like a Zelda dungeon, fighting whatever husks I could find before realizing, wait, I don't have mining fatigue. Something with the Sculk probably broke the redstone that makes this structure work, that makes it actually give me the mining fatigue effect, which allowed me to break into a lot of the areas to break down the spawners, but also made it practical for me to head up to the upper levels and, just like I kind of guessed that there would be, break the cobwebs which were being used for decoration in this area. That gave me a bunch of string, which allowed me to craft up a dozen TNT or so, but I figured why don't I go down deeper into the structure to see if there's any natural spawning TNT in here. But as I had a quick nap thinking I'll go underneath in a second, wave 8 spawned, and I need to attack this node before that is over so that the next Sculk Enderman isn't spawned right on my head deep in the middle of Horde territory with no way to escape. So I snuck my way outside, setting off a bunch of sensors, but not seeing any mobs spawned. And that was exactly the hint I needed. The fact that setting off multiple summoners is only pulling out a few mites, and not any of the more hostile, heavy-hitting mobs tells me that it's out of mass. It's a little low, so I can potentially attack. I threw down some purification flasks trying to give me some distance, mining up a bunch of sandstone that I would be able to use to try to bridge up and on top of the node. And right as it spawned wave 10 of 10, I ran for it. We have to go. We have to go now. Yes! Oh, that's huge. Huge. I jumped down to grab the chunks of brain and threw down multiple purifying flasks, flicking them onto the Sculk to make myself a little bit of space that I'd be able to stand. After that, I headed over towards the living rock structures, mining my way through and around them, picking up a bunch of the living rock, which I can use to make wards, as well as a ton of calcite, which I can use to make purifiers. And it was, thankfully, somewhat peaceful. Between the Horde just focusing all of its efforts over on the raid, as well as defeating a node, there was a bit of a moment of calm. But that moment was short-lived, because already into the day, the growth was starting to come back, and cows started to head my way, followed by Vindicators, followed by a whole horde of mites, zombies, and shortly after that, a few skeletons. And I was right. My window had closed. If I had not gotten here when I did, there was no chance I was going to be able to get to this node with the Horde's full attention focused on this area. So I spent what little energy I could kiting around all of the mobs, mining out the littlest bit extra of calcite and living rock, anything I could spare, before throwing down a bunch of purification flasks, trying to make my way out towards the river. Skeletons were throwing those acid balls at me, so I just ran as fast as I could, making my way over to a portion of land on the other side, and then pillaring up to get up on top of a hill to give myself some vertical distance so that the projectiles wouldn't be immediately dangerous. I took the long way down on the other side, running along the river to not leave a trail, making my way back into the base, having struck a major set of blows at the Horde. One right now from defeating the node, and another very soon from having the tools I will need to be able to destroy them forever. But being well over level 30, I spent some time grinding off some of the older, lower tier enchantments off of my armor and replacing and improving, just trying to make my gear better, being able to have it survive longer and keep me alive. And as the day ended and it started pouring rain outside, I took a rest and woke up on the morning of day 50, the halfway point of this adventure, and I spent some time first at the Tetra table trying to upgrade my gear, accidentally stripping off my enchants from the bow. And I only realized that now, doing commentary, I didn't notice it in the moment, so I'm going to be going into a fight relatively soon where it's like, why am I suddenly way less powerful? And this is why. But I also repaired and upgraded my main diamond tool, crafting up a whole ton of those ward blocks, 2 stacks, which would hopefully allow me to complete the path around everything. I did some enchanting on books to just get some other random enchants that I thought could potentially be useful, throwing that into a backpack as well as all of the iron and whatever supplies I had left. Once I stepped outside, there were some bandits just kind of chilling, waiting outside for me, and I was able to fight them and bring them all down. After killing a basically world-eating hive mind, 4 guys with gats? Yeah, I'm okay. I spent some time digging out a path surrounding the temple, throwing down all of the ward blocks around all of the edges, fully completing a square, and then thinking, you know what, I should throw down some other blocks as they only protect 1 in each direction. As I was working on that pattern, more guys with crossbows showed up. Taking out all of those earned me bad omen, but at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm the only living thing, and every village I go to gets eaten by the Horde, so what's a few regular pillagers. That would be a treat, honestly. But the following day, I put down the final few ward blocks that completed the barrier, or at least the perimeter surrounding my base. Each of these protects every block that it's adjacent to, and I'm hoping 2 strips of it is enough that the Sculk can't jump over the 3 to 5 block gap, but I'm breaking all of the vegetation that's even remotely close to the base, just trying to make sure. I dumped in a lot of the inventory that I had collected over a while and spent some time organizing, keeping a backup set of gear in my Go backpack, basically putting all of the amethyst in there, some of the important enchants, and cleaning out the backpack that I'm carrying with me 100% of the time so that I'll have space to be able to store loot and other useful things. I then stripped a bunch of logs, converting them into brass casings, reformatting and retrofitting the whole space in the lobby again, converting it from one create machine to another, putting the press up in the ceiling, and actually just making like a stack of blocks in order to allow that to press down some of the plates when I had a visitor knocking at my door. Hello there, friend. You know what? Come on in. Come on in. The world's a little... Wait, what the... Oh, that's bee stuff. What do you got for me? I'm so sorry. Oh, it's so weird. They left. How strange. Shame. With that taken care of, I made myself some new sandpaper, which allowed me to polish the rose quartz that I had made, grabbing some of the iron plates as well to make Nixie tubes, which would allow me to then combine with a bunch of different crafting tables and the brass casings to make auto crafters. I tried setting those up the following morning, and the grid for this is always complicated. You have to make sure that it condenses down to a singular point, but I'm building a large 5x5 but not really corners missing kind of grid, which will allow me to make the crushing wheels if I can provide it with enough stress. And let me tell you, if I could harness the stress that I felt myself anytime I needed to set up these gears to do a bunch of different gear interchanges and speed improvements and everything, I would have all the stress I could ever need. I thought, let me try adding a flywheel, which would allow me to add a little bit more power to the water wheels. So I crafted that up with a bunch of brass, hooked up a second water wheel on the back of the first to double its stress capacity, and threw the flywheel on the back of that as well, thinking maybe all of that together is enough to get it moving. And unfortunately, it was still overstressed. So I brought down the gear exchanges a couple times, brought down the speed a few times, tried connecting it all with belts instead of with gears. Eventually, I did get it hooked up, although painfully slowly. Hey, there we go, finally. Okay, we can make our crushing wheels. I popped in most of the ingredients, realizing I'm a little bit short on andesite alloy. I'm gonna have to go do some more mining for that. Heading outside and double checking my count on the barrier, realizing that there is a little bit of a gap here. So I moved some of the buried barrier ward blocks up on top of their counterparts, having to put down 2 additional blocks in the center. I can't allow even a singular gap through this space. If there is any breach in this wall, I figure it's gonna be just enough that the Sculk is going to be able to make their way into here. So I lit everything up and then took a quick nap, going into the following morning where it's down into the mines, where I have to mine up a whole bunch of iron and andesite in order to convert a lot of that into andesite alloy. I spent some time picking up whatever I could, finding a goblin trader friend, which allowed me to convert all of the raw iron into smelted iron at 2-to-1. So it's even better than if I had blasted it myself. I headed down into the deep slate, picking up a whole bunch of coal and a sharpness book from one of those underground campsites, actually remembering to pick up the anvil and a brewing stand, both of which would be really useful for me later. There's a few diamonds that I grabbed occasionally, picked up any iron on my way back up, stopping over at the amethyst geode to pick up a whole bunch of crystals from all of the growing areas. I headed back up the water and back up towards my base, smelting up the remainder of the iron that I had collected after visiting my goblin friend, forgetting that I had the fan. Don't blame me. All right, I used a little bit of the coal. I added the sharpness book to my katana and then did a little bit of tinkering at the tetra table and at the anvil, adding protection onto my chest plate. I probably should have enchanted that, but don't worry, that'll come back and bite me a little bit later. And now we're gonna test retention a little bit here. It's time for a little YouTube experiment. This is how long it takes to craft a crafting wheel. Enjoy. So with you all now probably having clicked off of the video, we can break down the crafting grid and install the crushing wheels in their place. The only trick now is going to be actually powering these things. I tried doing a whole bunch of different gear interchanges, getting everything up to speed, using different gearboxes, belts, moving everything as much as I could, but it was overstressed. I mean, significantly overstressed. That would have been so cool, but unfortunately, no. What gives me a lot of stress? I mean, what gives me a lot of stress? Capacity. So who would have thought, but running industrial strength grinding wheels in the middle of my living room is probably not a good idea. So I spent some time fixing up the foyer, just replacing all of the walls and putting that all back where it belongs. I broke everything down thinking, let's move all of the create stuff somewhere else in the base. At first, I thought, let's use the archery area over by where I had that spawner. Then I realized that water wheels aren't going to cut it. I'm going to need to upgrade to a mechanical bearing and some windmill parts. And I'm also realizing more about my base as I'm doing this. I had an anvil? I had an anvil. This base is too big. I don't know what's going on. I don't know where everything is. Is there more stuff hidden up here that I've forgotten about? Maybe. There probably is. Really only going to like these two rooms. Let's just go explore everything and remember what I have 2 smithing tables. Okay. Just re-explore the base and remember everything that's here. Because if I don't, well, I know that's there. If I don't, I'm going to forget. And if I forget, we're going to have problems. Smithing. That's just the little cubby. Crafting table. Back down to here. Okay, great. Cool. Now I know. I forgot about you. Hi, Jerry. But I picked up all of the iron and I started smelting a little bit of stone so I'd be able to make myself a stone cutter so I could do a little bit more in decorating the base. Thinking, you know what, let's actually add a wall as well on top of this row of ward blocks. That would prevent mobs from walking over on top of the Sculk from growing underneath me. I only got about halfway done with that going into day 55, where I needed to focus a little bit more on my industry still. I set up the crushing wheels near the top of the base, thinking that I could kind of burrow through the wall and have a belt delivering just enough power over here that I could convert to a windmill and attach it up at the very top of the base, having it be one of those post-apocalyptic, they've taken over a structure and you see like the windmill and a bunch of tarps and other stuff attached to the top of some big stone defensible structure, which it kind of worked. I set up the windmill at first, I made sure everything was connected, and then I started expanding it. I was gonna go for like a really, really big square so I would have a lot of torque from this thing, but I started running out of sails about halfway through. So it's like a diamond, but kind of not a diamond, and I didn't even complete the outside border, but we're gonna roll with it. It is also hovering in the air, supported only by the gears that are drawing power from it, but this is Minecraft. Physics be damned. I set up the belt, got everything connected and going. The only problem was both of the wheels are turning the same direction, which you can't have that. So I had to start doing some really complicated stuff to try to get it to shift to have one wheel going the opposite of the other. I'm thinking belts in the same direction? Nope, that doesn't work. 3 cog wheels? Nope, that's 2 changes in direction. It goes back to where it was before. Setting up a second cog wheel off of the first? Nope, that doesn't work. Setting up a third? Nope. I actually had to make myself a gear shift, which just reverses the direction of incoming power if it has redstone, and then it worked. Except for the fact that they were spinning upwards, which means that doesn't actually provide any grinding force. And I, in the moment, didn't realize it. So I just keep throwing things in and nothing is grinding and I'm not sure why. So I just dropped everything off. I went to sleep. I went to sleep in real life as well. And the following morning, after checking the create wiki, because I am not good at this mod, even though I include it in all of my packs and I really love it, I did start to realize what exactly I had done wrong. And once I shifted the gears up and had the left one spinning backwards so that they were pointing down, I tried hooking up a barrel with a funnel, and that didn't really work. So I just threw the amethyst in and let it do its job. Oh, this is awesome. It's obviously gonna make a lot. More than I could likely ever want. So now I had over 8 stacks of amethyst crystals. That is more than enough to last me the entire 100 days adventure and more. Combining that with a lot of the purity shards that I had, I'm able to do a lot more with this. And now that I have most of my equipment, I need to get ready to fight the Horde again. I know we just spent like 6 days doing base work in the middle of the apocalypse. All of that time, the Horde has been growing. So I enchanted my bow, crafted up a few purifiers so that I'd have some really big offensive artillery, and then started heading off towards the Horde. My first thought process was, I need more resin. So I headed over towards where I had defeated the most recent node, arming myself with a shield, sword, and bow, harvesting a little bit of resin from underneath a lot of the beehives. I'm mainly here though, so I can break down a lot of this Sculk into experience, trying to get myself up to level 30 so I can enchant my bow with better gear. The only problem is those 6 days that I had spent away allowing the Horde to grow unchecked allowed it to cross the river in multiple places. So now it's over in the jungle directly adjacent to my base instead of just to the south. It's starting to close in from multiple directions, which is not great, especially when it's spawning Ravagers on me when I go to push it backwards. I can't use the purifiers right now because I want to break this down for experience. So I have to just stand and fight, using a hoe to harvest all of the Sculk manually, which is not going great. I actually started running down the river thinking, let's go to a new patch of Sculk that I hadn't attacked yet. And it turned out that was actually dangerously close to the node. So even though I'm a little underprepared for it, let's go and try to attack. I threw down a bunch of purification flasks, which gave me a little bit of an early ground access. But I was starting to run a little short and I didn't have any of the potions that would allow me to stand on the Sculk or give me extra time in the gloom. So I grabbed a whole bunch of sand that I would be able to use to stand on top of things, crafted up another 2 purifiers with the resin that I had just collected, and of course everything's refusing to stack, pillaring up on top of one of the dark oak trees that I had initially purified, using that by converting it into planks to allow me to bridge over the Sculk, and throwing down purifiers on top of the trees to start clearing an area that I could actually start moving deeper into the land, trying to get towards the node. And I wasn't the only one exploring this area. What are you doing, my friend? How? How are you there? Do you have any idea where you are? I'm astounded. I slowly bridged from one treetop to another, throwing down flasks to make small movements and then purifiers to take big swings. The only problem was, this thing's a little prepared for purifiers on pillars now, throwing phantoms in my direction, which knocked me down to the ground, forcing me to kind of retreat and then build my way back up, running along those bridges, and having the phantoms attack the purifiers the entire time that I was down and away, doing some pretty decent damage to them. And it's smarter, is throwing blobs of Sculk on top of the trees, reinfecting from top to bottom, making areas that I can't across without taking damage, and specifically focusing on the purifiers, forcing them down to the ground where mobs can attack even more. Plus, I'm just randomly taking damage and I'm not 100% sure what from. The acid attacks on these skeletons are awful. The tumors that you get from phantoms hitting you are bad, but it turns out you just take damage from being around the node, and I didn't know that at the time. What was I even taking damage from there? I heard a new sound. I don't like that new sound. I don't see my purifier. I think it got taken out. And that is way too many mobs to deal with, so we run. I cannot risk taking on that much at once. Attacking that node and not being able to properly clear it clearly pissed the horde off, because as soon as I was running back along the river, started to make my way back towards home, it was plotting a counterattack, and I was not prepared for that. Oh, come on! No. Revenge. It was revenge for me attempting. Probably. Can I get this one when it's still young, maybe? With another node spawned and its intelligence doubled, it was far more aggressive, throwing a bunch of mite and spore spewers at the patch closest to my base and aerial attacks at the base itself. I had to take out a lot of the ground troops to allow me to actually just get closer to home, having a Sculk Enderman spawned and checking the map to realize that it was down where I had just attacked. So it was shoring up its defenses back at its base while assaulting mine. I tried taking out all of the phantoms as quickly as I could, just preventing getting burrowed or lured, even though I was both at the time. And the horde is inching ever closer towards the base. I threw down a bunch of purification flasks, I broke every shrieker, I fought every phantom. But Sculk was now to the north as well, and just barely over the line. The ward blocks doing just enough to hold it back, as I had to run inside and craft arrows, having completely run out of ammunition. And in the morning, it all fell apart. I headed up to the roof, fighting phantoms who were continuing to push over the line, breaking down as much of the sail as I could manage to do so, grabbing the crushing wheel so I didn't have to think about recrafting them, and just ran. I headed off to the west a little bit first, trying to get eyes on the node, thinking maybe if I can destroy it super quickly, I could prevent it from spreading even further and faster. And while I had eyes on the outermost shell of the node itself, I didn't really have a good way of attacking, at least not right away. I needed to wait until the morning so I would have the opportunity of light, because darkness plus the horde, that's a bit much. But I only had one shot at this, so I took it. Hold it, I might just get this. Yes! Okay, I gotta run before it spawns more stuff. Ow. The problem is, even with that node destroyed, there's still a node active, so the horde can still be far more intelligent in the way it attacks me, and far more aggressive with the mobs that it's spawning, throwing a bunch more Ravagers and Vindicators my way, and sneaking creepers around behind me to blow up, infect me with Sculk, and make new patches of infestation. The thing is, I need to challenge these nodes for those chunks of brain which are essential for crafting the final way to actually cure and defeat the horde. So I had to run back in, just tanking the damage to my heart, grabbing it, and running out. Oh my god, that was so... Ow. I mean, jeez. Can I safely... I can't stay here though, right? There's no way. I need to get that bearing. It's literally in the walls. Plus, I have lure right now. It knows where I am. All right, 07 jungle base. You've served us super well. I think it might be time to move on. Where do we even go, though? Look at all the phantoms right there. It's growing in that direction. Where do we even... We could head towards the archaeology site. It's been real. Oh no, that village is super dead. Let's head north for now. Beehive, beehive. We did. Wait. I don't think I'm supposed to have been able to pick that up. Y'all, you don't know how little you scare me right now. You're welcome. This is the easy way out. Something tells me things are about to get a whole lot worse. And with that completely not ominous sentence off my lips, and why did I put that out into the universe, I slept trying to tame a horse the following morning, going through a couple different options, trying to find something that would be fast enough to outrun the horde, but also potentially have a little bit of a jump. And I completely struck out on the second of those two parameters. I'm going to be completely honest, but the horse is fast, so we're going to keep that. We're going to go with that, all right? I threw a saddle on them so I'd be able to head north, making my way towards the archaeology area with the kind of nether corruption all throughout the ground and a single villager right here in the middle of the space. What do you buy? Buy bones. Bones. I quickly mined up a lot of the netherrack around here because it's some pretty free blocks that I can mine up super quickly, grabbing a little bit of gold that spawns in this little bit of corruption here. But at least it's like normal corruption, not goopy corruption. As I was chopping down a tree for some wood, wave 6 of a raid spawned, and I didn't even know a raid was active right now, so that's a little bit concerning, but it does mean that the horde's attention is directed elsewhere, and I maybe have a little bit of time to get a breather to be able to make myself the supplies that I need. And first thing I need was a little bit of a kind of just workstations, making myself a new tetra table so I could repair all of my tools, using books and an anvil to do enchanting on my non-tetra items to add some fire aspect to my sword, so it could be a little bit more effective. I threw down Jerry, giving him some TNT to hold on just in case, thinking I need to make myself a blaze rod as well, or at least some blaze powder, in order to do some potion brewing so I could get some other supplies to be able to take on the horde again. So I started setting up the water wheels, heading all the way down the mountain to get myself a little bit more water, to get that all set up, getting the pumps going through multiple different exchanges, and after a quick nap, grabbing lava buckets from my go bag that I had taken from the previous base, starting on the process of making a blaze rod. And with just one of them, it's a lot easier to go back and forth between the two, making it actually relatively quickly. This recipe is really not designed to be done 7 at a time. I don't know why I insist on doing it that way. But I made myself some blaze powder, realizing I didn't even need that to do the create potion brewing. I forgot about that. That's all mixer based. So I'm thinking, okay, let's convert everything, setting it back up to do the mixer, getting that on top of the cauldron, making the awkward potion, and then running over, grabbing a melting slice, adding a whole bunch of gold leaf onto that, and then making myself some healing potions. I then went to loot my backpack to grab some of the brown mushrooms that I know I had in the base to make myself some fermented spider eye so I could convert that to harming, realizing that I didn't pack it in my panic. I tried to see other ways to be able to get brown mushroom. Wandering traders would sell it, and I know other places that it would spawn, but I'm running a little bit short. So I just, in my anger, kind of grabbed a bomb out of my backpack and chucked it. Accidental explosions aside, I reorganized my inventory and checked out the warp scroll that I had in my pocket, realizing that this would allow me to warp over towards the base. This will literally get me inside. I don't like it, but it'll work. This is potential. Oh, if the raid is there, I'm in trouble. That's the thing. Because I remembered everything else except, yeah. Here we go. I quickly grabbed myself the flame book and the spider eyes from the chest in my panic, forgetting what I was actually sent down south here for, warping my way back up towards the archaeology site with a second warp scroll. I used the tetra table to add the flame enchant onto the string of the bow, so I finally had some decent offensive enchants on that bow again, sleeping, and the following morning realizing my mistake. Oh, I forgot the brown mushrooms. I forgot to go upstairs and grab the brown mushrooms, which I needed. All right, we're gonna have to do this the hard way. But I can think of something that we can do in the interim, which will help. Ooh, yeah. Okay, I got a plan. I'm so mad at myself for forgetting, but I have a plan. This stuff's all gonna have to stay here for now. Actually, let's make it a quick chest for all this netherrack. I have a plan. But we're gonna need some stuff before we can head south again. So you might be wondering why I mined up a bunch of netherrack and I'm looking for spider eyes. The answer is that I can grind that netherrack down and then splash it with some harming potion to be able to make gunpowder in bulk, having each bucket of potion make me about 40 gunpowder, which is about 20 TNT. And I need explosives to take on the Sculk brains. But as I was heading down the hill over towards a roofed forest where I know I could find a bunch of brown mushrooms, I saw a square of stone brick that seemed oddly appetizing to go in and try to loot. Oh, yes, please. Holy, that's a stack of emeralds right there. It turns out this is one of the dungeons with a bunch of mobs from Minecraft dungeons, with a bunch of unique weapons inside and armored and equipped skeletons. Breaking the spawners here was once again a mistake. I just didn't know it yet. Grabbing a bunch of cool weapons out of the chests.
A venom glade. Oh, what is this stuff? Oh, that looks a little dangerous.
I blocked off a lot of the water in the second chamber back, lit it up, and then get a little tickle onto the nameless one, waking them up and starting a boss fight. Getting them down to half health with melee was pretty easy. I do have a diamond sword after all, but after that they became a little bit harder to hit, trapped back in the water and throwing a projectile that would just tear through me for 4 or 5 hearts of damage if I wasn't careful. I kept my distance for a while, just trying to bow them down, but the damage really wasn't scaling as much as I would expect, so I had to go in and make it personal. Oh my god.
Something buried under him? No, I don't think there's anything buried under them.
I did a little bit more looking around in this dungeon, realizing that I had somehow walked away with 5 emerald blocks worth of emeralds and then some. Heading back out onto the water, remembering I had boots, which will allow me to run on the water, dragging my horse behind me.
This is, don't mind this. This is fine. Everything that you see here is perfectly normal. Don't question this.
Once back on the dry land, I jumped back on horseback, allowing me to work my way through the root forest and into the birch forest and over towards the nether area where I'd be able to grab a whole bunch of gold and some other supplies. I mined up some nether brick from one of the roads to be able to just get blocks to get on top of the Blackstone Tower and mine a bunch of gold from the top of this section, sleeping to dismiss the rain and the darkness so no mobs would spawn, heading down to some of the lower levels and working my way around a lot of these explodey towers, trying to time coming in for a whole bunch of swipes of my sword to be able to blow those up in between them blowing up in a way that they actually wanted to blow up. Without an upgraded template, I can't go ahead and upgrade my armor. So the main thing I'm getting out of here is the gold. This is gonna allow me to make a whole bunch of golden apples, which I need for more purification flasks and more hearts of purity. And the few piglin brutes that are maintaining station in these kind of nether infested areas are pretty easy to take care of if I can trap them in the water, especially since I can, stand on water. And I have a weapon that gives me extra reach so I can clear them far sooner than they can damage me. But as I headed back to my horse and made my way over to an area where I wouldn't be struggling underneath treetops and heading over towards the roof forest, I made a little discovery.
No way! Hey, friend!
I didn't see you last time. Friend. Hello. Okay, let's get you somewhere safe. Come on, friend. We need to make sure you survive. Whatever happens, we need to make sure you survive. I'm gonna put you right here for now. There you are. I need a name tag for you. I have one. Oh, I left my anvil at home. This is expensive, but it is the rule. Friend. Hello, friend. You made it. Even in the apocalypse, I have friends. We just need to mark this location, and we can never let the infection come to... Oh God, it's so much worse. It looks like it's only partially infecting the base though. I wonder what will happen there. Goodbye, friend. Stay safe for now. I'll be back. Don't worry about me. It's gonna go save the world from an apocalypse. Gotta love the branding, everybody. It's so random, but it's so consistent. The next morning, with that pink sheep secured, I rode over the top of a bunch of treetops, making my way back towards the coast next to the ruined portal, leading up my horse and continuing running east, heading back towards the archaeology site and parking them. There, I was able to convert all of the gold blocks down into ingots using all of the apples I had built from the farm and making myself almost half a stack of golden apples. I converted a good chunk of that into purity shards right away, mainly going for the ones that wouldn't stack, getting almost a full stack of shards, which I could then use, which are a whole bunch of bottles in my crafting inventory, to make a bunch of purification flasks to be able to fight back against the Horde. I upgraded and repaired my iron multi-tool, heading down into the water to do a little bit of exploring, heading south towards a beach area where there was a bunch of sand, going through almost the entire durability of the tool, mining up just over 3 stacks, making sure to stay divisible by 3, so I could easily convert it into bottles a little bit later. The following morning, I had to break down the mixer, leaving the basin untouched so that that healing potion would stay there for a minute. Instead, converting to a press so I could make myself a bunch of iron plates, which would allow me to craft up a new fan and set up a new second blast smelting setup so I could smelt all of the sand into glass without having to worry about any fuel. I crafted all of that into bottles and then converted all of those bottles into purification flasks, saving off about a stack of them for other potions that I would need later. After that, I ran back over towards the roofed forest, realizing that in finding a pink sheep, I had completely forgotten why I had left this area previously, not remembering to grab any brown mushrooms on my way home. But as long as I was over here, I did a quick double check on the portal, finding another block of crying obsidian, which would allow me to craft up another purified soul once I could infect that block and then cure it. I ran back along the river on my way home, making it just as night had fallen, sleeping in my sleeping bag, crafting up a fermented spider eye the following day, and converting those healing potions into harming in the mixer, which would allow me to go ahead and convert a lot of my netherrack into gunpowder once I did a little bit of pumping and got everything converted with the... Yeah, okay, look, I struggled with the create wheels again. I'm not good at... I love create, I really do. I'm just dumb. I really am. But I now had all of the harming potion in the spout. I just didn't have any of the cinder flower, which you get from crushing the netherrack, which I actually had to go ahead and crush the netherrack to do that, reconverting the gears again, kind of operating in this very mobile setup, getting everything in place so that everything would spin as expected, and then quickly setting up a miniature version of the windmill and having that go through multiple different gear exchanges to build up the speed necessary to get the crafting wheels ready to go, and now spinning in the right direction as I had relearned how this all works. Heck yeah. All right. We're in business. I threw a whole bunch of netherrack into the wheels, seeing that ground down into dust. Oh, we're really cooking now. Taking a quick nap in front of it, and then watch the magic happen. That's just gonna make gunpowder for me. Heck yeah. So that's done. We have a lot of cinder flour too. So 40 gunpowder. Not bad at all. But that is not all that this can do. You see, other things that it can do is get me glowstone by spreading some night vision potion on top of everything. So I went through these steps of converting and brewing up some night vision potion. First, basically having the gears do the mixer and then breaking that down and converting the gears to do the potion into the spout, getting myself about 40 glowstone, which I can use to enhance and upgrade some of my other potions that I want to brew for myself pretty quickly, as well as have some other useful things with that. More info on that soon. But now that I have gunpowder, the things that I need for TNT is sand and paper. Sand is easy enough. I just need to find a beach and convert it into blocks. Paper is going to require a bit more work. I repaired the iron tool that I had just so I could go ahead and shovel a whole bunch of sand, riding south to get towards an area where I knew there was some, but seeing some Sculk in the distance and thinking I should probably intervene here a little bit. The rain here was not helping. Taking away my fire damage on the Sculk and damage over time is making the Horde a lot harder to deal with. But I was able to pop off a few blocks of Sculk for some potion brewing for the resistance potions, setting up my piece of crying obsidian and trying to bait the Horde into growing in my direction. I was mainly trying to fight the spore spewers, which were spawning in reaction to my assault, and day 69 was not feeling very 60 nice. But I kind of pushed back a little bit too well, getting all of these Sculk growth back and away from my piece of crying obsidian, having to break it down and instead moving in a little bit closer and figuring, you know what, instead of going for infecting here, let's just full on eradication, throwing down a ton of flasks, over 2 stacks of the 16, pushing everything back to the top of the hill and back a little bit further, getting to the tree line a little bit further south to buy me more time before the Horde would grow back north towards my newest destination and safe haven. And it wasn't gonna let me do this without a fight. It was spawning a ton of mobs, throwing them in my direction, pushing me down the hill, sometimes literally. And they somehow weren't the only mobs I was dealing with. Really? Leaving that captain so I didn't have to worry about picking up bad omen whenever I went back to the archaeology area, I saw a little bit of cobweb and some wood, giving me the idea that there is actually a mine shaft here. And it goes down deep, so there's probably some good resources down there if I could get the time to go down and explore it. But I cleared myself just enough time to take a quick nap in a cave leading to the following day and thought nothing ventured, nothing gained. I rode the vines down a good chunk of the way down into it, grabbing a block of water that I saw from a flooded cave that the mineshaft entrance actually intersected with. And once I was able to jump all the way down, I was immediately rewarded. Funny enough, the thing I'm most excited about getting down here is the string. I need 1 piece of this for each piece of TNT I want to craft, and while I'm finding things like diamonds hidden inside and behind the walls, the coal that I'm getting from the furnaces and the string that I'm getting from the cobwebs are some of the biggest takeaways, honestly. All of the gold from the chests is also super useful, but it's one of those situations where every little bit counts. I continued working my way down the primary tunnel, getting a bunch of cobwebs broken down, breaking off to some of the ancillary tunnels and finding things like spell books hidden in the chests with really creative names, areas where it had been burned off and the leaves had touched lava, and a small section of emeralds, which I was able to mine down for a pretty tidy profit. But as I was heading back towards the entrance, a new node had spawned. Being underground in that situation is a little nerve-wracking, I'm not gonna lie. I don't like the idea that the Sculk could be growing over land on top of my head, trapping me deep underground with no way to surface safely. So I swam up the water to get myself back up to the surface, mining my way in a staircase pattern up through the hill, realizing I was heading in the wrong direction. I ran my way over and to the top of the hill, being attacked by phantoms from all directions, trying to tank the damage as I'm running over different patches of Sculk, just trying to get to the northern side of the mountain so I didn't have to deal with being kind of surrounded on all sides, a ton of mobs were spawning, pinning me down in this location and forcing me to fight. And it didn't help that I ran out of arrows about 2/3 of the way through this battle either. But I figured let's try to make lemonade out of these lemons, throwing down my one piece of crying obsidian and seeing if I could get infected, as there were a ton of different spore producing mobs in this area. After fighting things like mites for a little while, it didn't really work, so I kind of aborted on that really quickly. I made my way down the northern edge of the mountain, getting to a point where I could quickly sleep going into day 71. I did a little bit of just kind of screwing around on that side of the mountain for a little bit, grabbing some sugar cane, a little bit of food before jumping on my horse. But instead of heading back north, I wanted to do a bit more exploring with the extra mobility, trying to get eyes on the node, seeing if I could potentially see where it had spawned in. I used the horse to be able to clear the mountain pretty easily, seeing the node down on the desert right next to this body of water and thinking I might have the opportunity to make a play here. I made myself a quick shovel that I could use to kind of scoop out the goop on the inside of the node, so I didn't have to use as much TNT, as I only had 4, and that wouldn't be enough without some blocks broken. So I used my boots to run on the river and gave it a shot. The reinforced Sculk corrupted sand was enough to block the explosion, so I had to abort. I only had 1 block of TNT left. I know it wasn't gonna get in because 1 explosion hadn't done anything previously, so we just had to leave. I tried. It was a worthwhile shot, but with that many mobs around me, it was a death sentence or a suicide mission if I was gonna keep pushing at it. I spent some more time harvesting up some uncorrupted sand that I could theoretically convert into more TNT, going back and grabbing every supply I could muster. I spent a little bit of time putting all of the sugarcane down, trying to get that in the most efficient possible way I could, just so that would start growing, so I could start making more TNT. Taking a quick map before kind of crossing a few themes and checking out some magic. What is this? Oh. Half the cost of the user's entire mana bar, whichever is smaller. Utility spell to 8. You were hurt, but you're fine. Hold on. I think I know what this might be. Is this a heal? Okay, let's... It's a heal! It costs the whole bar, but that's a heal. What is this? A magic healing book would be really, really useful, especially when I can take a lot of burst damage from the horde if I'm not careful. So I kept that in my back pocket while I did a little bit of potion brewing here. First, I tried to brew the Sculk resistance potion, and it turns out, while it did have it as a liquid that Create can use, it can't actually be mixed in the Create mixer. It would only work if I drained it out of potion bottles. So, failing that, I made myself some more healing potions, corrupted that into harming potions, and brewed some of the Sculk resist the old-fashioned way. This way I could get a bit more gunpowder, and I can use some of the glowstone that I had made from cinderflower to be able to upgrade this to level 3, which would give me even more hearts and more time standing there. I also did a bit of farming for some carrots for an idea I have I can use to push back against the horde that I'd kind of abandoned really early on, also spending some of my copper to make myself a kind of tier 0 starter upgrade for the stacks, which would allow me to craft it and upgrade it to tier 1 for half of the iron of normal, meaning I could actually afford it and I can get my backpack being a little bit more efficient. I quickly deployed and undeployed all of the purifiers so they would stack back into a single place in my inventory, took a quick nap, and did a little bit of mining the following morning, just getting enough cobblestone that I could make a furnace to get a few things smelted. I made myself a slab, which became a grindstone, which would allow me to grind off some of the lower tier enchantments from my armor and do a bit of enchanting with 40 levels behind me. Heck yes. Prot. Yes! Okay, that works. Metal bone stick or echo shard. Can I do just netherite? Tier 4 hammer. Wait. I need a tier 7 hammer. What do I have? Tier 3. So can I upgrade it to diamond somehow? Yes. Okay, that works. I really want to upgrade metal. So just make gold. Okay. Sick. End stone. You know what though? It looks sick. Since the netherite wasn't useful for actually upgrading my armor, I'm at least going for style points here, applying a bunch of netherite trims onto my armor so I am the one the Sculk should fear. There we go. Now we look the part. Now we look tough. This is base camp. Forward camp 2. There's no way the Sculk can find us, right? We're way too far away. Okay, why would I say that? Why would I ever say that in a scenario like this? Why would I challenge the universe and threaten the Horde by saying, you can't get me, when it always finds me? I have no idea what I was thinking. But my absolutely just pushing my luck aside, I made my way down to the water, running across, finding another mineshaft entrance up north here. So there's a lot more string and hopefully other supplies down there if I do some searching. But I need a lot, and I'm not gonna find it down in a cave. I ran along the water, which is such a cool ability, grabbing all of the sugarcane that I could find before heading south down into the infected area, mainly trying to edge around on the westernmost coast, thinking that if I approach from another place or I approach from the direction it's growing into, the mobs won't be as reinforced and I could get my crying obsidian infected to make myself more purifiers. It didn't work. I think the Horde might know that if it infects this block, it actually helps me, so it just left it untouched, growing around everything else instead, forcing me to kind of recenter and think, let me try to bait out some mobs to be able to cause a fight. And as I approached a village, the mobs came for a fight. Oh no. Let's try to get a Fletcher. I very quickly made myself a fletching table as fast as I could, trying to find a villager that I could convince to sell me some arrows. And everybody seemed really calm for one of the most dangerous mobs of the Horde being just right outside. Maybe it was because their golem was doing the tiniest bit of damage, but that had stopped. I'm pretty sure it was dead. I took a quick nap, and in the morning, it got worse. Oh, now there's 2. Great. One of them's gone. One of them's gone, never mind, it's just one. It's at half health. What's fighting it? I don't know. I think just being close to it hurts. Oh, I don't like that. That looks like some kind of alt. Still don't have any arrows. Ow, ow, ow. It has... Where'd you go? Don't tell me it left. I think it might have left. Ow. My man. Oh. Nope. There. Oh, and it's healed. Okay, can I find a villager who's alive? Just one. Yes, I hear you. Where are you? Oh my god, look at that army. It's trying to knock me towards all of its friends. Ow. Did it disappear? I think it disappeared again. Oh, but the skeletons! Oh my god! That was a lot. Oh, okay. I think we're alive. I mean, we're alive. I think we're fine. I think we're fine. That village is super shot. Like, super dead. So quickly, too. Okay. We still have the fletching table. Oh my god. Okay, we still have the fletching resin. Oh, potentially a lot of resin right there. Oh, but it hasn't made anything yet. The nest needs time. Can slow it down though quick. I mean, this village got obliterated in less than a Minecraft day. That's ridiculous. Hey, pillager tower, why not? Do you have arrows? You have arrows I could have? That'd be great. Ooh. Ooh. Turns the wearer in, wait, what? Seriously? Hold up. Wait, really? That won't help because of the armor. That might come in handy later though. Killing not only one, but 2 Sculk Endermen. That was close. That was intense. And you could tell just by how much I was freaking out for the whole fight. That's gonna set the horde back, but it's also just gonna piss it off. I'm gonna be honest. So I'm gonna have to kind of accelerate my timetable if I want any chance of this working. The following morning, I headed out of the pillager tower and I was looking for some new friends. There's no pillagers here, which tells me that they've abandoned all hope as well. Yes, okay, here's my plan. I need a horde too. Let's get some acolytes. Army, join the army. Okay, I need to get these all back towards home. But I have a bunch of gear that I could equip them with. I just need to get them home alive. All right, so here, mark. I still need arrows, so I'm gonna hope they survive. I'm gonna go run, actually here, let's have them join me, no, this is fine, this is fine. I'm gonna make an army. If they work, I'm gonna make an army and I'm gonna give them all the legendary weapons I found from the dungeons gear. I'm gonna kit them out. But I still just need arrows. Like arrows or an infinity book, but arrows. And explosives. Alright. We're gonna try to find some arrows. So my thought here is, since the last village I approached just immediately got raided by multiple Sculk Endermen, maybe if I find another, I'd have a better shot. I was picking up any sugarcane I could find along the way, mainly just getting that so I could make the paper for bombs, putting down the crying obsidian and trying to get that infected while I was at it. And while it was spawning basically every other mob the horde could throw at me, it wasn't spawning any creepers, which meant I couldn't force this block to get infected, and it just doesn't seem to grow into it naturally. Running from those skeletons, which I will have nightmares of these skeletons for as long as I can live. God, the acid on those is the worst. Look at how accurate they are. I made my way back towards the savannah where it turns out they were kind of waiting for me. The mobs were just down here, closer and just kind of patrolling around the outer edge of where the horde had infected, including a few creepers. Worth it. I mined up my piece of infected crying obsidian, crafting that into another pure soul, which would allow me to make more purifiers once I got myself a bit more resin. Nice. We still need a bunch of resin. I'm thinking maybe some old growth Sculk can help with that. My thought is, since you need the beehives to kind of generate a lot of that substructure underneath them, having the older Sculk down here would allow me to then kind of just find more of that resin. That was the thought, at least. I also made sure to break any of the just uninfected beehives that I could find around here, both for the mass and if any villagers still had a beehive job, just getting rid of that. Better than the alternative, and I'm sorry. And I'm not heartless. I felt bad. How are you still a beekeeper? Move. And the following morning, that strategy turned out to be well-founded. Farmer, perfect. Okay, so that means probably here. Yes. No, come here. Come get this job. Ow, 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 ooh, ow. Restock. I will take I will take everything you have, my friend. Refill your pockets quick. And I have some bees to fight. I worked on throwing down some purifiers, which would allow me to get closer towards town square. This was the very first village that had been infected, and it means that the horde is both really defensive of it, able to do a ton of damage to me if I'm not careful, but the hives have been growing for some time, and the phantoms keep chunks loaded. So that might work. The only problem is, everything here is infected, including all of the fish doing near constant damage to me whenever I stepped on any block that was remotely close to water. So I had to slowly make my way in, staying more on the landlocked side of the village and avoiding the river side, breaking down a lot of the ground in the center of the area to get a whole 1 resin. I kept checking around any of the other kind of local Sculk, finding a ton of phantoms, but no more hives. Killing those phantoms would kind of slow the spread in this area. It would no longer have these chunks loaded and constantly spreading, but it just kept spawning more whenever I killed one. It was a full-on Sculk Hydra situation. Actually, I'm gonna take that back because I know the developer watches these videos, and I do not want to give them the idea of a Sculk Hydra. No, that is very scary, and you're not allowed to have it. No. The following morning, I figured let's go even older growth, heading over into the desert, which was unrecognizable from the beginning of this world. I did see a few hives about 40-50 blocks into this part of the growth, so I threw down a few purifying flasks, making a small beachhead, harvesting up a whole bunch of sand, making a tower, and putting a big purification machine on top of that. Now, this is where things turn up pretty quickly. I'm able to get to the hive, and the purifier actively pushes back the Sculk. Except that also really upsets it, so it spawns a whole bunch of mobs attacking not only me, but the purifier itself, constantly dividing my attention between my own defense and the objectives that I'm trying to get to, as well as protecting my flank. Because if that Sculk closes back around me and mobs attack me from behind, stick me in a hole next to this hive if I'm not paying attention, I'm probably dead. A couple different acid bursts and one good bite from a Ravager, and I am DOA. So I need to play this careful. I made sure to break any of the hives once I was done harvesting the underlayer of it so that it wouldn't continue to allow the horde to spread, fighting a whole bunch of mobs, and started to become very cognizant of the durability of my armor. And the horde was making progress. The purifier is able to make a space, but the second it broke, immediately the pillar it was on was converted, and it kind of made this bullseye in the middle, giving me a donut of safe space, but really just trying to get at me from both sides. And there's a ton of mobs here, and I'd run away with a whole bunch of resin, but once I started getting multiple stacks of that acid damage, my health is ticking down pretty rapidly, and it's pretty nerve-wracking. I got both of them. Yes, okay. We escaped good. Where even? Oh my god. It's so bad. Third hive. How much resin do we have? 24! Oh, that's awesome. I honestly think that's literally all we can make. Okay. We'll make a break for it in the morning. So in the morning, I splashed myself with a Sculk Resist 3, which would give me more time in between damage ticks and 2 hearts on top of my absorption hearts, basically getting me to 2 full rows. And I was gonna need it, because while jumping kind of slows down the timer, it slows down your contact with the ground, but you're covering this much distance, there's no way to go away from it, and it's even harder when the Horde tries to push you back inside. Oh, okay. Bob and weave, bob and weave, bob and weave. Purify. Oh, that was so insanely risky. I mean, it was good. That felt good, but God, was that insanely risky. Oh my. Getting around that's actually gonna be a bit of a problem too. All right, we'll have to go wide. I spent my time running along the water and the coastline, getting back to uncorrupted territory and my new best friends ever. Okay, my army, we rise. This is gonna be interesting. All right, let's go, you 4. You laugh, but when I have these 4 kitted out in diamond armor and amazing weaponry, oh, we're gonna be a force to be reckoned with. And with the ruse in tow, I took a wide berth around the infected villages, just trying to make sure that no mobs can attack me, especially while my allies are currently unarmored and undefended. I don't know how quickly they'll die by the Horde. But while I can run on water, my allies can't, so I had to constantly make sure that I was getting to loaded land chunks while the mobs were still loaded behind me, allowing them to teleport across whatever body of water I had just run across so that they could join me heading back north towards base camp beta. All right, back to base camp. My army grows. So now if I am thinking about this right, oh, this is so, I love it. I love everything about this. Oh, what can they use? Can they use the hammers? Can they use the claymore? Can they use the venom spear? Hold on, we're gonna see. You. Yep. You get a claymore. You get a hammer. Oh my god, yes. Oh, I'm gonna train these kangaroos to save the world. Now we have a fighting chance. Now I finally have backup. Oh yes, I love it. Let's make our explosives. What can we make here? Okay, short on sand. Excuse me, I deserve this. All right, it's day 80. We need to start thinking about endgame. There's a new way to defeat the Horde in this adventure, and that requires making a soul harvester. The only problem with that is that it requires a shrieker, which really only grows in the older Sculk, not the infection that happens across the surface. Okay, we need armor. We need to get a shrieker. Now the problem is, I don't think shriekers spawn in this Sculk. This cell does summoners, so I need to find probably under here, right? Let's go caving for a bit. Trying to hedge my bets and knowing that I lived in very mountainous terrain, I swam underneath the river, just starting to make my way down into the caves. While I was mining a staircase, my diamond pickaxe honed yet again, allowing me to work on another upgrade, getting all the way down to the deeper areas, breaking my way into a cave, finding diamonds, and some old inactive Sculk. I grabbed the diamonds first because I'm a Minecrafter still, that's always gonna be the priority, working my way down to the Sculk at the very base level, and and this is where the Sculk's corruptive effect is going to be the most dangerous, because the health doesn't return until you kind of interact with sunlight. So I have to very carefully carve a path across this, and while I like joking that the Warden is not scary compared to the Horde, it is scary when you're trapped in a small cave with them, so I don't want to go summoning one anytime soon. I very quickly tried to find a Shrieker, breaking a few sensors along the way as well, getting a bunch of gold also, just so I can make myself some more golden apples. Less so for purifying, more so for healing for myself. But while I found that, I did find another rascal down here and played a little hide and seek. What is that? A rascal. Oh no. I was grabbing a bit more ores in between rounds of playing tag, getting a bunch of diamonds that refused to stack, so into blocks and then back out, allowing everything to go nicely, getting a bundle with a kind of middling enchanted iron pickaxe out of it, twice. Look, I'm not gonna say no, this one had silk touch, that's still nice to have, but considering I'm in full diamond and a somewhat reinforced version of it, it might have been a little bit too late in the game for me to actually engage with this mechanic. So I spent the rest of the evening doing a little bit of searching, leaving behind the pickaxes and the bundles. Don't tell the rascal, okay? Don't tattle on me, no snitches. I need the inventory space. But I worked my way in towards a mineshaft area, grabbing a whole bunch of string and some other ores from around here, finding a little node of gold that I was able to break down for a lot of materials that would help me heal. After a quick underground nap, I did a little bit more exploring around here, grabbing mainly all of the string that I could find for bombs and getting some big come-ups from a few chests littered around. Oh, yes! Oh, that is huge. Oh, and that's just a chest plate for one of my brews. Heck yeah, God apple! That's gonna come in so handy. He said the thing. That's gonna be so useful. Oh my God, look at that. Okay, nothing down here. That's huge. Honestly, that is so huge. I mean, the theme of this caving experience was gold for healing items and getting a God apple. Yeah, that basically covers it, right? I love streamer luck. It is just so good. And spoiler alert, I never will. That's probably something for a magical 100 days at some point in the future. I'm kind of focused on the end of the world and good old-fashioned bombs. I genuinely was just excited for string, so we can make more explosives. But that is a major come up, like genuinely game changing. And there's the spawner. Oh my God. Bombs, redstone. What is this? Source gems. I don't even know. But this spawner down here would be extremely useful. So I marked the location on my map so I'd be able to get back to it later, breaking down a few other more webs for string, and then realizing I wasn't alone down here, seeing a ghostly kind of miner zombie floating through the walls. Oh, I don't like that. Thankfully, they didn't seem immediately aggressive, so I just continued working my way through the mineshaft, getting a couple other really useful things, including some night vision goggles. Yo. But I ascended up the ladder right here off of the main tunnel of the area, realizing, and kind of having guessed this, that this is the entrance to the mineshaft that I had seen earlier. That was massive, absolute come up. A God apple, a bunch of armor, a bunch of other equipment, and a spawner, which we could use to sacrifice some souls. I headed back up to base camp, taking some of the iron pieces that I had found from these chests and using it to equip the kangaroos, taking a quick rest before setting up a bunch of the raw materials to get blast mined the following day. I had to re-hook up the fan, set the lava back up in front of it because this kind of mobile create structure can't support all of my things at once, but I got a bunch of the raw gold smelted up quickly so I could make myself a bunch of golden apples. That took a little while because I was basically smelting a stack at a time. I also made myself the soul harvester, which would allow me to beat the game. Dormant Heart of the Horde into an active variant requires souls to function. High purity. That's useful. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, I wasn't ready for that revelation. That's a problem. Echo shards as a requirement kinda hurts. There's a lot I'm gonna have to do to be able to get for that, and now I'm worried if I'm actually gonna be able to complete everything in the remaining 18 days in this world. And that just makes it even worse. But I can't think about that right now. I need to just be ready for the fight if I can somehow get towards it. I repaired all of my Tetra tools at that workstation using a good old-fashioned anvil to repair my katana and my armor, just using it with raw diamonds instead of armor pieces. This was potentially less efficient, but it did feel like I didn't want to commit everything to a crafted set of armor instead. At least not for myself, because I wanted to make sure I could craft armor for my ruse, getting a chest plate and pants and not much else. That was all the diamonds I could spare. The Heart of the Horde did require a Heart of the Sea, so I jumped into the ocean, finding a drowned, just a single normal mob. Oh my god, a normal mob. Hi, you're not infected, you're real too. That's genuinely so exciting. I'm honestly surprised that I was excited to see them, considering normally they're trying to kill me, but actually compared to the fact that everything else being mostly comprised of goop, that's a nice change of pace right there. I made my way south, back around the westernmost side of the Horde's growth, finding a few areas where it kind of creeped back in towards the forests and was starting to slowly climb north. I passed by the village that I had been at and fought the 2 Sculk Endermen, getting down to the large ocean at the southernmost tip of the area, finding another archaeology tent right here, and a few ruined portals that didn't unfortunately contain any crying obsidian. Being able to run on water is nice, finding a few POI, including some armor trims there, doing a bit of underwater archaeology, and having to remember to surface to breathe. But I kept exploring the following morning, thinking that single sand blocks were maybe pointing at buried treasure, or I could find something buried underneath the gravel inside this stone circle that was just kind of plopped here. I did get some artifact pieces that I could theoretically put together to make myself a artifact of some kind, but I don't know if I have the time to spare as I need to save the world from the apocalypse right now. I quickly leaded up a dolphin to allow me to swim at Mach speeds, making my way around, finding one of those dungeons that I had fought some of the dungeon mobs in previously, and a shipwreck where I was able to grab a lot of the loot and a buried treasure map that would point me towards where I need to find a Heart of the Sea. The only problem was, once I left the ship, the dolphin was just kind of gone. I think I might have snapped the lead on the boat, so I had to swim back out at normal speed, making my way to the coast and digging in to find my treasure. Let's go. Perfect. Actually, a lot of iron. I don't think I need the water breathing or the iron sword, but I will need that. Need a lot more brain chunks too. Oh boy. That's good though. Okay, something else cross off. I still don't know where the node up here is. I spent a little bit more time kind of moving around the ocean, doing a bit more archaeology, drowning occasionally, finding an Elder Guardian skull fragment, which is just kind of metal looking, I'm not gonna lie. Swimming towards an underwater ruined nether portal that had another 2 pieces of crying obsidian, which would allow me to craft a couple more purifiers, giving me more firepower for a final battle. I made my way to the coast, having a quick nap, doing a path the furthest south I had done yet, finding another nether portal with another crying obsidian. Oh my god, that's huge. Huge. 2 warp scrolls? Massive. I made my way along the treetops on the mangrove forests to the south of the very first village I interacted with, doubling back to find a ton of spore spewers here and a whole bunch of mobs that were willing to attack me across the river. That included a few creepers, so I put down a lily pad and then just put down 3 crying obsidian in the middle of the river thinking, I'm gonna lure a creeper over here to explode and convert these. And this is just circus music worthy. No. Oh yeah, the horde didn't find that funny. I immediately had to worry with an Enderman that knew it had me at an advantage. It was on the high ground with me pinned in the water, constantly using its sonic boom attack to prevent me from actually gaining ground and getting to distance. I'm standing on lily pads sniping it, meaning I'm a stationary target as it's moving back and forth and being able to do a lot of evasive maneuvers and take advantage of the cover that it has in front of it. Plus, my bow is just not doing that much damage. It's taking a full stack of arrows to get it down to the point where it's just through 3/4 of its health, and if I try to stand on anything related to the village, it's all corrupted, which means I'm taking the corrosive effect on my health with every tick. And speaking of corrosion, you want some corrosion with your corrosion? Here's a couple skeletons that will douse you in acid. That's not great. Plus, every time I got close to the Enderman, it would just teleport away or teleport behind me, throwing down a bunch of crystals that would disorient me and spawn a whole bunch of mites to attack. Get over here, you. At one point, when it looked like I was gonna win, it hit me with this levitating attack, throwing me up in the air, making me a sitting duck for any of the ranged mobs. Thankfully, I had cleared most of them out already, which meant I just needed to wait out the levitation, making my way back down onto the pier to try to take this thing out. Come on, warp over and fight me. You have like a pixel of health. I can take you. Why do I have weakness? Oh, that's a lot of skellies. Oh my. I quickly retreated, picking off all of the ranged mobs and dousing myself in a purification flask, forcing my way back up towards where I'd killed the Enderman, even though Ravagers are trying to nom on me at the moment, throwing on hitboxes so I could find the cleaver claw that had dropped in the water. Do we get it? Do we get it? Do we get it? No. Where's the cleaver? Got it. Yes. Yes. Okay. With this, I can do a lot of damage, and I can make something really, really cool that wasn't available last time I played this mod. But I also need these crying obsidian blocks here, which I could get if the salmon weren't constantly trying to nibble me. I spent quite a bit of time taking out all of the fish in the water and anything else that the horde was throwing at me, constantly spawning mobs on the coast of the river and just putting them out towards my direction. It did, at one point, finally oblige me with a creeper, which exploded in the middle of the river, perfectly infecting all 3 of the crying obsidian I had set up. Perfectly calculated. And then this happened. What was that? Oh, it's the acid. I'm not gonna lie, at one point I had 0 health, and somehow I survived. I don't know. I just did. I quickly mined up all of the crying obsidian and got out of there as fast as I could, considering myself lucky. Day 85, I still need some more brain chunks, which means I need to take out a couple more nodes if I'm gonna be able to craft the Heart of Purity. So I ran my way around the Sculk, kind of just staying close to it so I could keep eyes on where it was and how far it had progressed, making my way to the more magical village that I had teleported into and had instantly gotten attacked when I did that, over towards the hills that separated my current second base camp from where the horde was growing. It started to pour rain, which was a problem for me because I was relying on fire damage from my weapon to do sustained damage over time on the horde. And the horde was throwing a lot at me as I was heading towards a village that it had not yet attacked. You see, I'm still really limited on ammo. I have maybe half a stack of arrows at this point, and if I'm gonna go taking on more nodes for more brain chunks for the soul harvester and the heart of purity, I need to be able to actually go on the offensive, and running out of shots mid-fight is not gonna end well. So I'm fighting a ton of mites, a ton of ravagers. I'm not even 100% sure where they're coming from as I made my way into this brand new village. Also having one of them burrow into me and then spawning a blob of Sculk, which dropped down multiple zombies and skeletons in the middle of this village. And I think you can see where this is going. This is all gonna go very badly, very quickly, because then an Enderman spawned.
Oh, come on.
Now, here I am thinking, I just killed one like 40 minutes ago. Why is this immediately just spawning another one? Maybe I had been on cooldown, I just mistimed it, or it was just scouting out again since it had so many nodes active and that timer was reduced with each one. But it very, very quickly gave up, not spawning a raid even though I kind of did nothing. There's only a few minutes in between those two messages, so I'm gonna take the win there. I looted a bit from a few of the houses, finally finding a few villagers who had found a small uncorrupted area by a few bees, which I broke their home and had to murder them. Super unfortunate, I know, yes. But these 3 villagers on the ledge of me were about to have a really weird time. You see, the entire village is being corrupted around us, including this house. Like, you can see it being consumed. I'm just trying to give one of them a job. There's a couple times here that I had gotten the burrowed effect or the corrupted tumors effect, and I'm just fighting mobs off as quickly as I can while waiting for one of the Ravagers to attune to the fletching table so I could buy all of the arrows. I went from 29 to several stacks worth of arrows, trying to hold out on this area for enough time for the villager to actually refresh. But multiple Sculk creepers burst their way in, exploded, and killed practically everything. And it didn't help that multiple of the more aggressive Sculk forms were also just constantly attacking me from over the trees. But somehow, and I don't know how they do it, 1DT is just fine.
Friend. No egg. Nope, you don't have what I need. I'm sorry, I need the leads. I can't have you taken by the horde. Another village just completely scuffed. All right, we need to get out of here before it gets worse. How do I even make the cleaver? Echo shards. Do echo shards have a recipe? They do. Awesome. Am I doing I have enough resin, I think. Okay. We're good. We got some bullets. Some people died. It was a sacrifice that I was willing to make.
Look, it's the apocalypse. Sometimes you need to make some hard choices, and trading a few villagers' lives for a few stacks of arrows. Look, I didn't kill them. I just kind of showed up right as the horde also seemed to show up. Those two things seem correlated if you don't think about it too hard, but you just shouldn't think about it too hard. But I made my way through the woods, finally heading to the spot where the Sculk Enderman was just chilling. It was just hanging out near the node that I had attempted to attack and had been pushed back away from. The one that had spawned maybe 30 some odd days ago. But I needed to be careful because I was burrowed from killing all of the mobs and all of the phantoms specifically, which meant every so often I'm just kind of plopping out a little blob of Sculk goop, which immediately spawns a bunch of mobs which try to kill me until I can break the block. And then it spawns a creeper which tries to kill me. The ground was infecting underneath my feet pretty rapidly, so I had to stand on top of a tree, throwing down a few purifiers to both purify myself and give me a little bit of space, shooting any mobs that were just camping out underneath me and running so they wouldn't be able to follow me. The phantoms are probably the biggest problem here, and they were the ones who were constantly infecting me past what I was able to defend. But a quick nap on top of the trees and a few splash potions later, I was able to make my way in towards the infested area, trying first a much more aggressive approach, staying on the ground, tanking a little bit of the damage, and throwing down purity whenever I started losing hearts, but that immediately set off every sensor in a huge radius, summoning a bunch of mobs to this area. But I'm thinking, What if I was my own distraction? I left all of those mobs and looped around the coastline, running along the water to a more southerly approach vector. This was actually right about where I had attacked from previously. You can actually see the blocks between the trees that I had used the last time. And once I was able to uninfect a tree, chopping it down to be able to build a whole bunch of planks, I repeated my older strategy, just this time a bit more well equipped and with a whole bunch more arrows. The skeletons scare me. If one of those knock me off, put me in front of a bunch of Ravagers, I'm probably gonna die. So I'm making a lot of my pathways a lot wider this time, just so I don't have to worry about getting knocked off. Plus, it gives me more blocks that if any single one is corrupted, I have a little bit of time. I made a small little 1x1 cube, hiding a purifier inside and letting that do its work. Breaking down the closest summoner towards the brain and just throwing a piece of TNT against the node, making the tiniest bit of a hole and then doubling down. That did set off a few shriekers, but at this point I think it had spawned enough mobs in the area that it couldn't summon more. And I had successfully acted as my own distraction on my first attack attempt at this area.
21,000 mass. Yes. You love to see it.
I grabbed the brain chunk, heading over towards a few of the living rock spires right here, mining down and grabbing a little bit of calcite and living rock before picking up my purifier, heading over to the river and running my way back over towards the jungle base, which it actually held up surprisingly well.
Still kind of partially intact. I mean, I thought with all of the horde around it, it would be like, I thought this would have been taken over and it was just the map being out of date. Did the ward blocks really do the job that well? Why just like that little bit?
Realizing I could actually take a moment right here, I headed inside, grabbing a few supplies like some Sculk blocks and going through some of the different archaeological chests and other things to see what I could find. I grabbed some slime balls, as that could probably be useful, a couple other just odds and ends before leaving the area, running between a small strip of land between two growths of Sculk and heading to the west, fighting a few roaming mobs on the front line of the horde, but a brief moment of respite. From there, I headed around the southernmost side of this ridgeline that kind of acts as the main kind of parallel of the Sculk v Overworld fight, getting to the point where I could see the node in the distance and throwing down a bunch of purifiers to try to give me some space. This time, I'm not fighting from up on top of a tower. I am taking this much more immediately and much more aggressively, which means I'm tanking damage right to the face. Taking out a whole bunch of mobs and kind of running low on food, using some raw potatoes and carrots to get me through as I threw down purification flasks getting towards the node. It was constantly spawning a lot of mobs here, so I had to play this very smart. Throwing down the first few, doubling back, clearing out a few of the Ravagers that spawned in response, and trying to throw down a bomb again, once again being blocked and stopped by this reinforced Sculk-infested sand here. And it doesn't help that it's just spawning a ton of mobs. Knowing that I'm attacking a second node in just as many days, it is doing everything it can to throw me off, so I can't keep pushing the horde back. So I'm watching my armor, I'm trying to avoid taking damage, I'm seeing the Sculk regrow behind me even though I had purification flasks down, and then I thought, purification flask. I threw one in the brain, which would convert the sand back to its uncorrupted form, a piece of TNT down in it, another on the roof, shot the top one hoping it would fall down to blow up the lower one, and made a break for it. There we go. Pay no attention to the fact that I missed 3 shots immediately after celebrating. I did what I could to fight off a few of the mobs that were spawning around here, running in to grab the brain before just booking it up and over the mountain and then along the water, running up via that so that any possible tracking the Horde was doing wouldn't give it terrain to crawl across and instead would be like, where the heck did he just go? I made it back towards the campsite late into the evening, having a quick sleep to celebrate, and then the following morning doing a little bit of inventory management, dropping off everything I had collected, and seeing what it would take to craft up a few echo shards. I had basically everything I need for this, but I do need some other supplies to arm my kangaroo backup if I'm going to be going into combat. So I cracked open a few of the geodes that I had been collecting over the last 10 days or so, set a warp scroll which would allow me to return back here to the island pretty easily, and crafted and collapsed down all of the emeralds into emerald blocks just so that everything would stack again. After that, I made my way down the mountain and across the lake, going into the mineshaft area, using that to drop down and just craft up a few things. Going into the mineshaft area, remembering that, oh yeah, it's haunted.
Forgot about you.
I checked out a lot of the minecart chests that I had missed the first time around just because I didn't have inventory space, mining around a few of the resource node locations to get myself a bit more coal just so I could have it, and a bit more gold so I can craft up some healing materials for myself and my ruse. I found an underwater flooded cave that intersected with the mineshaft, which allowed me to grab a couple diamonds pretty easily. Exiting out of the end of the mine, back into open caves, running around grabbing whatever ores I could find, and breaking down the pots to be able to get bones that I could convert into bone meal that I could grow a bunch of carrots and hopefully raise more ruse. And it's funny, despite those pots giving me bones for a majority of the full 100 days, now, once I want them, I'm only getting ash and other things until way later, where I only picked up 3, having spent most of the day underground at this point. I kept grabbing whatever gold I could find, whatever diamonds I could find to give me a little bit more ammunition and armor, finding a chest that was trapped in the most 2012 way.
That's a trap? I mean, sure?
But things are going well. I'm picking up any ores that I could find, and just the sheer number of Sculk mobs that are up on the surface means that the caves are somewhat abandoned and really just empty. I don't have to worry about mobs fighting me as much down here just because of the mass growing closer to spawn taking up a good portion of the mob cap. That does mean I can't get passive drops like string and bones, which I would normally rely on and be able to get in bulk, so I have to really go from resource node to resource node, picking up whatever I can. I had a quick nap and then mined my way back up to the surface, realizing that I was pretty far off at this point, but I made it back into sunlight earlier in the day and started running along the forest to work my way back. I did see a new village to the north here, completely and furthest away from the Sculk that I had seen thus far, heading over towards it to see if I could do a little bit of trading. I first slaughtered all of their animals for food because I was eating only carrots at this point, and I desperately needed a bit more, grabbing things like iron and arrows from the item frames, everything from the church, and doing a bit of trading with the clerics to try to get myself some ender pearls. That all went mostly according to plan, and this is the first time I've been in a village in about 50 days that it wasn't immediately being consumed by the Horde, so I was able to take my time going around and looting and getting everything I could out of all of the chests. I had a quick nap in somebody else's bed, and oh my god, I'm a pillager. The apocalypse's basic me just turned me. Who am I kidding? This is not the apocalypse's fault. I just do this. This is just what I do. I convinced a few villagers to pick up a Fletcher job to be able to buy multiple stacks of arrows, getting robbed by a seagull on my way out of the village, finding another one of those little burial mounds, hoping for a couple totems, but ending up with a few armor trims instead. I grabbed the bones also, because that would be useful, making my way back towards my base, cooking up a whole bunch of potatoes that I'd be able to use for food for myself, and growing a whole bunch of carrots from my ruse. I also crafted up a few other golden apples, compressed a lot of my inventory down into its block form, and went through the kind of go backpack / mobile base storage that I had been using to drop off any items that weren't immediately useful. As I was doing that, a Sculk Enderman spawned, and I checked the coordinates. This one is way back at spawn, right where I had previously attacked a bunch of hives, so I didn't have to worry about it just yet. I spent the time organizing my inventory, getting everything sorted, spending all of my XP bottles, breaking all of my geodes, and getting a handle on what my final overall inventory and supplies are looking like. Because I'm getting ready to head down to spawn. I might end up fighting that Enderman, because I'm going to be fighting the Horde at its home. But I want to make sure I'm going down there with every possible weapon at my disposal, so I crafted up a few of those echo shards and looked what it would take to make the heart of the Horde. Now, I'm going to be honest, this is a modified recipe. I like this version better because it forces you to kind of interact with more elements of the whole thing, not just grind through nodes. So I made myself some sandpaper to make myself some coal rods, going through the process of converting 2 of those rods into blaze rods, having to go to a nearby lava pool to get myself several buckets of lava for the process. And I've done this a couple times at this point, so voila, they're ready. Here are some other rods I've prepared before. Making myself enough echo shards that would allow me to craft the heart of the Horde, as well as the Sculk cleaver.
Oh, this looks sick. Check this thing out. All right, we got to get it enchanted. Hopefully something really good. Lapis, please. Actually, wait a second. Improving. Does this work for something? Smite, that's not good. We need sharpness. Oh, that'll do, pig. That'll do. We're gonna need other weapons, but that'll do. Now we just gotta get our crew armored up. And it's time to assault. It's time to go.
This weapon is the ultimate, I'm gonna turn you into a gun. It's a very Destiny 2 approach. It takes your enemy and just smushes them down into a weapon that you're gonna use against them time and time again. The following morning, with myself equipped, I focused on making some additional armor for all of my roos, making sure they were all at least iron, full iron armor, with some of the legendary Minecraft Legends weapons in their hold, hopefully allowing those abilities to proc on top of all of the things that I was using myself. Once everybody was equipped and I had made all of the armors, that cost me most of my iron. I only had about 20 pieces left, making a few additional golden apples, which didn't stack with the other ones. But I took the final bit of my gold, crafting up a golden carrot and a glistening melon, which I just found out has an R in its name. I thought it's been glistening melon for this entire time, but that allowed me to craft up an auto-feeding template, which allowed me to store all of my food in the backpack, automatically feeding me, so I don't have to worry about doing that in the middle of combat, and that's one fewer thing I need to keep on my mind. After that, I used whatever diamonds I had left to fully repair my armor so that it would last the remainder of the battle, crafted up as many purification flasks as I could muster, and looked into how I would make the Heart of Purity.
Defeating the Sculk Horde, we can do it this time. It's possible. Oh, you know what we need to do? We need to make one more eye.
I made myself a couple more blaze rods, which allowed me to make Eyes of Ender, which I was then able to convert into Eyes of Purity, which would point towards any additional nodes that would be on my path, thinking, or at least thinking in the moment, that I needed to defeat all of them before taking on the central horde. I purified the final crying soul to get 4 pure souls, which I need for the final crafting recipe, looked over my gear, and just had one final deep breath. We're heading south tomorrow, and we're taking on the horde.
We ride.
And it knew I was coming, and it was ready for me.
Okay. Another node has spawned. I have no idea where that would even be. Come on, squad, let's go. Now, I have a plan of how to get some souls. I remember right. There could be spawners in here, but there could also be spawners down in the dungeon. I'm not certain. Right, everybody has purity. I'm so sorry. You did good, horse, but I gotta run where you can't right now, so go. Be free. Don't get infected.
Stay alive. Just do good, okay? All right, come on, y'all. Let's roll out, squad. Here we go. Get him! Oh my goodness, I make him hover! No! Already we lost one? We're already one roo down. Oh, and it was the best equipped with kangaroo meat. No! No, another one! Oh no! You're the lone survivor, my friend. You're gonna do me proud. Take the venom glaive. Come on. We can do this for everybody else. Get him! Get him, Roo! Okay, we're gonna get to the pyramid. No! No, it didn't work. It went so bad so quickly. I shouldn't have brought kangaroos in to do a Sculk Slayer's job. I couldn't make them agents. Oh no, it's already so bad. You know what? We will remember them. We will avenge them. We will, oh geez, we've done so, I've sacrificed kangaroos to the horde. Maybe with like 1,000 of them it would have gone better, but that just did not end well.
I threw down some purification flasks to make a small beachhead on the rear of the pyramid, thinking if I go in there, there's a bunch of spawners that I could possibly use to be able to sacrifice a whole bunch to the soul collector to be able to, you know, purify this heart. Don't think about that too hard. It does make me sound like a villain. But this is where the I really wish I left the zombie spawner up on the top level from like 50 days ago comes back to bite me. But I spent a whole lot of purity flasks and then even installed 2 permanent purifiers inside boxes on the mid-level of the temple. From there, I headed down the central shaft, picking up a whole bunch of TNT for free, which is nice, and looted the chests.
We got gunpowder. Ooh, another warp scroll is useful. Oh my god. Wait, that literally can change the game. That literally can do everything that we need. Fire prot. Wait, wait. That's a second god apple. Oh my god. Okay. We need to make a tetra table to be able to use that. Also, we have the warp scroll to get out of here quick. Okay, so we need wood. Okay. Please let there be some spawners around here.
After a little bit, I finally found what I was in here looking for. 2 silverfish spawners in the middle of a small enclosed room that I'm able to make a floor out of stone out of by dumping a bunch of lava down here. I put a few purifiers up on top of the fences that were decorations on top of the walls to allow them to be in a secure area within an eye line of me, but not in the way of any mobs or myself accidentally damaging them. From here, I set up the soul harvester and started making a bit of a mess. Each silverfish that I kill within range of it uses its soul energy to charge the heart of the horde. The only problem is it only does it bit by bit, and this is going to take a while. And the horde seems to know that I'm doing this here, because it's constantly trying to grow into this chamber.
So much so that even with 2 purifiers running, it's getting within like 4 or 5 blocks of my current location. I'm also taking a decent bit of damage just from the silverfish and other mobs here, and my helmet had not been repaired, so I took it off in order to save its durability for the final fight when I had to go underground for the ancient node, expanding this room to make more spawnable space for each of the spawners here, dealing with a ton of particles that is probably making YouTube compression really not like this segment of the video. But with each silverfish that I kill, I'm getting a little bit closer to my goal.
It's like one more. Heart of the Horde.
I found a ton of Sculk mobs just on the other side of one of these upper walls here, probably spawned in by the Horde just outside of reach of where I was. Killing all of them, returning back to the safe area that I had made between the purifiers, and crafting up the cure.
Okay, let's make this before I forget. That is how you beat it. That's how you beat the game. We have a way to beat the game.
With this in hand, I'm actually in a really good spot here, but I wanted to finish exploring the dungeon as there'd been a bunch of other really useful things here, and if I can get like another god apple or some final pieces of armor or weaponry, that would be useful before I headed underground. I'm using a bunch of purifiers, but I could always craft more. I have quite a bit here. Finding my way through a few of the traps, a few of the areas, very thankful that most of the redstone had been somehow disabled or defeated by the Horde. Getting in towards kind of a throne room of a sense, with a bunch of Royal Guard husks with enchanted weaponry and powerful shields standing in my way. And if you're thinking, why didn't you find this room first and kill all of these husks for this whole thing? It would have charged so much faster. Believe me, I thought of that. But I'm thankful I had kept searching because my instinct was right.
Oh my god, a third one.
Another god apple in my pocket, breaking down a bunch of the spawners for levels. I was able to get a lot more gold from the throne itself, which I could craft into more golden apples, as well as just some other riches and values, which are mainly for you for the world download. From there, I collected the purifiers from their bunkers here, disabled the final bits of redstone on the main floor, and then made a small exit hole out of this space, being immediately accosted by a bunch of Sculk mobs that were waiting for me on top of the structure. Once I dispatched them, I was able to run my way down through the water, fighting a few spore spewers, actually pillaring up on top of the tower that I had made the last time I was in this area, and then going up a few blocks on top of that as the infection was aggressively trying to consume me. I had a quick nap, and it was time to descend.
When we started, this was a normal desert. We spawned like right there in the middle of a normal desert. Look at it now. Okay, we need to get down into it. I think making a gap helps. And we just make do from there. $42, $62, $26. It's like right over there. Somewhere right down there. All right, got a purifier up. Armor that as best we can. And a flask for the road. Here we go.
When ashes to ashes fall, and no one can hear you at all. This is the end. There's no tomorrow, and it's falling apart. This is the end. Dark clouds rain on me. It's pouring, I can't be the only one. Through the smoke I see the warnings, the light of a dying sun. When ashes to ashes fall, and no one can hear you at all. This is the end. There's no tomorrow, and it's falling apart. This is the end. The world is settled, and there's no light left in the dark. Here we are as worlds collide, standing on the edge of time. There's nowhere to run to, there's nowhere to hide. Here we are as worlds collide, standing on the edge of time. There's nowhere to run to, there's nowhere to hide. This is the end. There's no This is the
Need to get closer. Take this. Yes!
Did it. I did it! I did it! And with the Horde defeated, or at least disabled for now, I looted the final chests in the chamber, made my way back up to my entrance point, back up the shaft, and to the surface where purity was starting to spread again. A world restored. We've done it! The phantoms are still around, but like, the world is trying to cure itself. And now we can push back on the long road to a cured reality.